What's up, guys? On your great response to our first part, we are back with another part of What If Bella's Imprint Was Rosalie Hale? Part 2. Before that, more than 50% of our viewers haven't subscribed our channel yet, so do it to be part of our 1K family soon. So let's get started. Last night, Bella called me a leech. I drove her to La Push after she could stay away no longer. Charlie and Billy fought there, of course, after that nasty big reveal. Bella lost her temper when I tried to calm her down, tried to be responsible in the chaos. And she called me a leech. Told me not to speak to her again. If that was what she wanted, that was what she would receive. I was Rosalie Hale and people were never permitted to take me for granted, even the person I loved so deeply. And yet, although I refused to let myself contact my mate, I sat in the Cullen Manor porch at sunrise with my phone on my lap, waiting for Bella to call or text me. My phone remained utterly silent, even as the pink tendrils of dawn rose over the tree line. "Rose," chirped Alice, opening the creaking front door. I jumped, but she did not mention it. "Are you ready to talk about what's upsetting you?" "No," I curtly replied, frowning. I shoved my phone into my pocket to stop it taunting me. "Please, I'm your sister. Come on," Alice pleaded, sitting down on the deck, her legs crossed in a comfortable and easy pose. "I can't even handle my life when you're not feeling good." "Fine." Bella called me a leech and I think she broke up with me. I didn't know the wolves were even capable of doing that to an imprint. I am still perpetually haunted by what Amunet said about me and my special destiny. I knew that had to escape me sooner or later. Maybe Bella was angry because she could sense that I care so much about that destiny, that elusive question, the thoughts of Amunet that haunt me day and night. Alice offered weakly, with all that on your chest, are you okay?" With a loud sigh, I huffed, "I'm pretty fucking far from okay, Allie." "Yeah." I asked a stupid question, said Alice slowly, averting her eyes. "I don't know what to do about Bella." "Oh, yet," Alice frantically added, and I almost smiled. "I don't know what to do about Bella yet. I'm a love guru and I'll totally have that title revoked if I can't help you too." Sure. I didn't believe her. I couldn't believe her. My heart was broken, and I was livid. And, to be honest, I'm pretty shaken up about Amunet too. At night I can't be around people or really shopping except on line, and I just sometimes sit there trying so hard to remember. I used to try hard to remember, but I stopped once I found Jasper. Now I'm trying again, because maybe I really am connected to her somehow and I don't know it. Yeah, having a destiny according to her is pretty on my mind. In drinking human blood, in drinking human blood, in drinking human blood, I can't stop thinking about how she knows me. How does she know me? I don't remember, there's so much I don't remember. Alice frowned. It was such a strange expression on her lovely bird-like face that I was taken aback. Suddenly, a calming but stern voice stated, "She may have powers beyond our imagining, but she also is a liar who will say what she needs to get what she wants." Carlisle was home. I wondered how much he overheard, but I could not bring myself to ask. What chance is there that she was telling the truth? What chance is there that she really saw my future or that she knows Alice in the past? I will be honest, I do not know Alice's past. But I doubt they crossed paths. "Alice, you saw a tombstone for yourself. Amunet had been buried for a very long time. Rosalie, she can see the future. She can see Pat. RNS and what will happen if one person rolls a marble and it somehow eventually becomes a world war." I inquired, "The future? Like Alice?" "It isn't the same as Alice," said Carlisle with a sharp shake of his head. "Patterns are never as precise as visions, but they are more reliable. They never change and never fail." I remarked, "That's a lot of nevers. I have one more for you." Carlisle stepped into the light and his skin sparkled like diamonds. "I'll never let Amunet hurt you. You're my daughters and I'll do anything to keep you safe." Alice leapt up gracefully and embraced the Cullen patriarch. I could not help but be less than impressed, and I was not sure why. Did Bella ruin me somehow? Yes she did. She still did not text me. And I utterly refused to be the one to text first. After a long day of sulking about Bella, I started helping Emmett on his latest project. He always had something going on. At the moment, that something was bigger than usual and at the edge of the property near the woods. "What are you working on?" I asked as I strode down the hill. He stood shirtless for no reason, holding a hammer with a nail between his teeth. He spat it into his hand and turned to look up at me. "A guest house," said Emmett, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Why do we need a guest house?" I asked with a small laugh. "It'll add property value." Emmett winked. I laughed again. He glanced at me with a twinkle in his eye and helped me over a mud puddle so that I could get a closer look at the half-finished structure. The bare wooden planks glowed bright amber in the orange evening light of the golden hour. "What even happened between you and Van Belsing?" asked Emmett, kicking open the toolbox. "What makes you think something happened between me and Bella?" I demanded, tensing up my shoulders. "Because you're acting like somebody who got their heart broken, and now you're trying to distract yourself by helping me build a guest house." "Fine," I snapped. He called me a leech and freaked out, and she's been ignoring me. She usually texts me ad nauseam and it's been radio silence since last night. "Have you texted her?" he casually asked, shooting a swift glance in my direction. "No, of course not." I frowned, lips pursed and jutting out in a partial pout. "Ah." He chuckled with a wise glint in his eye, as if he knew something I did not. "Don't ah me, Emmett Cullen," I exclaimed, before realizing my anger and deciding to explain myself in a calm tone. "She needs space. She's going through a lot." I picked up the nail gun and started working on the front door frame. "You need space. Not her." "What? You're scared. This is an excuse for you to run from her because you never love anybody as much as they love you." I demanded hoarsely. "Are you a psychiatrist now?" "No. I'm just a dude who makes observations. You don't want to be with her and so you're using her little hissy fit calling you a leech as an excuse to bail without feeling bad about yourself." "I mean, Rose, you're just scared to be loved and you're scared to love. It's a matter of time before you just get bored of her and break up with her yourself. If you just..." "I'm holding a nail gun," I said. And it's going to get acquainted with your crotch if you continue this line of thought." Emmett held up his hands in surrender and we worked in silence for the rest of the day. I sat, dazed, on the porch in the middle of the night, the fire pit we kept on the porch crackling in front of me. My mind wandered as I gazed through the smoke up at the glistening stars. It was pleasurable to let my mind wander. Away from Bella, away from all my waking nightmares of late. "Rosalie," whispered a voice, as soft as the wind and as cold as a rattlesnake's hiss. "Rosalie." I snapped up, my eyes overwhelmed by a flurry of blinks. Finally, I saw the source. Amunet. Amunet was here, she found us. But I was paralyzed, frozen in place, struggling against invisible bonds. "Rosalie, come face your destiny," she smiled, sharp canine teeth glittering ivory in the firelight. Her black dress rippled in the midnight wind, and her raven hair fluttered around her. "Rosalie, come find me." She reached out so close that I could smell the death and carnage on her. "Carlyle," I screamed, finally snapping away from my paralysis. I stood up and looked around, but I was alone. Amunet was nowhere to be found. "What is it?" asked my father figure, bursting through the door. Humiliated, I whispered, I thought I saw Amunet." Carlyle furrowed his brow and looked around. "You should go inside. Edward and I will scan the yard." Okay," I murmured, standing up. Inside, I sat down on my bed, staring at the wall, returning to my reverie from the porch. But suddenly Victoria stepped inside and I jumped. "Don't be so scared, princess. I just wanted to ask if I could borrow that soft pink shirt of yours. The one with the white buttons. I'm going out tonight." "Yeah, go ahead." She swiftly removed her shirt and dug through the drawers to find the replacement. "Like what you see," she teased. "I have a mate," I snapped, snorting at her ridiculous wanton ways. Victoria just batted her long, dark, curly eyelashes, ignoring my utter distaste. "Yes, but as far as I know you aren't blind. You look fine." She was adequate compared to the sleek, muscular fire of Bella Marie Swan. The girl I was beyond angry at. I couldn't imagine Eve speaking to her again, yet I still saw us in the future married with puppies. I did not honestly know how I could feel both of those things at once. Victoria slowly walked to me. She purred prettily. "Are you sure she's your mate?" "Yes," I said, although I was uncertain. I was uncertain if I loved her or if I loved the idea of a mate and puppies and someone who would love me innocently, purely, eternally like only a wolf could. Or is this just your fucked up response to being her weird wolf imprint? Asked Victoria, as if she could read my mind. Maybe Edward told her about those nasty thoughts. I bared my teeth. Victoria only smirked in response. She took my face in her hands and softly crushed our lips together. The intoxication and sweetness of it was brief and bitter. I shoved her away. Never, I snarled, dare do that again. Victoria just smirked. Cross my frozen heart. I restrained the urge to rip her head off and fled the scene. The next day, I finally received a text from Bella. My stomach filled with both excitement and dread as I picked up my phone to read it. My mom wants to meet you, it read. We're going to the zoo in Seattle. I texted back more quickly than I would be proud to admit. I'll meet you at the school. Okay. I'm excited to see you. My fingers lingered over my iPhone keyboard for a moment before I typed back, me too. I stared at my phone for a brief moment before shoving it into my pocket and standing up to find my car keys. The day after meeting Renee and visiting the Woodland Park Zoo, an unknown number called me. I answered with a languid hello and then perked up as I heard Bella's voice. She spoke, however, with a strange urgency in her tone that I wasn't used to. I'm sorry that I'm calling. Bella. I double-checked. Yeah. She took a huge breath in. I'm on Jacob's phone. I need you in La Push. It's Amunet. Please hurry. The distress in her voice was obvious. I leapt to my feet and ran down the stairs. I almost made it to the door before Victoria cut me off. Get out of the way. I raised up my hands, prepared to shove her into the wall. You're in a hurry, said Victoria. She seemed worried. That genuine concern forced me to be honest with her. It's Bella in La Push. Amunet, something about Amunet. Take me with you, ordered Victoria. Shoulders squared and stance strong. What? I shook my head, eyes narrowed. Victoria coolly repeated herself, taking 2 steps towards the door. Take me with you. I did not have the time nor the energy to argue. Come on. But keep up, I'm not turning back for you or slowing down for you either. Okay. I drove to La Push faster than a demon on speed. Thank God for vampiric reflexes. It was possible that I could have kept driving down to Oregon until I screeched to AS top when I saw Bella's swan in the middle of the road waving her arms. Victoria cursed at the sudden jolt. I hopped out of the car in one fast movement. Bella took my hand as I steadied myself on my feet. She kissed me and then pulled away. Bella said hastily, eyes wide, we have to go to the cave. It's important. It's Amunet. Hold up for a moment. Are you okay? You sounded so scared on the phone. I'm just freaked out, said Bella, wringing her hands. They were so beautiful, so visibly soft, the perfect match to her soft succulent scent. A scent that was off today. Not as sweet. Maybe I was falling out of love with her. Can you tell me what I should be expecting? No. Why? Because I don't even know what I'm expecting. Victoria slowly and regally stepped out of the car. Bella tensed up. I furrowed my brow. Why is she here? Demanded Bella, still sounding strange. I worried she was angry. Worried she suspected that I was cheating or worse. I explained in utter earnest, she wanted to come. The more people we have the better off we are in a fight, anyway. I guess, said Bella, uneasily eyeing Victoria. I wondered if she could sense the weird history, the way Victoria ceaselessly came onto me. The way I kind of stared at her breasts for a couple moments the day before our zoo trip. Come on, Bella continued. The best way to the beach is through the woods. I locked my car in Victoria and I took off after Bella. When we reached the beach I slid to a stop in the rancid sand. The odor was foul, not just from the smell of death and seaweed but from the wet dog stench of the wolves. Victoria followed and stood beside me, too close. Bella glanced between us. Grabbed her arm just as she was about to dive into the water. Tell me what to expect in that cave, I whispered. Bella explained in a vague monotone, Angelique was in town. She was headed there. I think we can take her. I think we can use Angelique to get to Amunet. Victoria shook her head, wildfire red hair whipping around her. Amunet wouldn't send Angelique undefended. Bella huffed. Look, I don't know. But I'm a wolf designed to kill vampires. Amunet wants Rosalie alive, and you're a killing machine of sorts, Victoria. I think we take our chances and at least find out what Angelique wants with the cave. Someone came bounding down the side of the beach at an inhuman speed. The girl wolf, wearing a swimsuit underneath a yellow sundress cover-up. She held her shoes, damp hair bouncing against her copper skin as she ran. "Hey, the ginger isn't allowed on La Push land," shouted Leah. "Just the imprint. You know the rules, Bella. No vampires." Bella spun, eyes wide. I had no clue why. She seemed so scared to see her close friend. As far as I knew, she liked Leah more than she liked Jessica. "I'm pack leader and I'm allowing Victoria to be here. It has to do with Amunet. It's important. She is our #1 priority." Leah made a face that caused my skin to crawl. "You're not Bella." I froze. "Venganza," whispered Victoria, and I thought perhaps it was a curse in another language, but then I realized it was a name. Because Bella no longer was Bella, she was a vampiress with scarlet eyes and dark hair wearing Bella's cheap flannel and Converse. "Hello, Victoria," she purred in a beautiful, lilting Spanish accent. I couldn't move. "It is so good to see you again." A loud roar rang out, rivaling the buzz of the ocean waves, as Leah transformed into a wolf. Venganza's eyes flashed and she began to run, bolting away from the scene of the crime as the wolf viciously and eagerly pursued her. I turned to Victoria. "We should check out the cave." She held up one finger. "Okay, that sounds like a bad idea. I need to know if Angelique is really there. I need to know why Amunet was luring us into a trap. We have the upper hand. We caught her lackey. I'm going. You can come if you wish." I ran into the ocean and began to swim. Victoria followed me, albeit with a grunt of frustration. After a long swim, I surfaced in the cave and blinked the water out of my eyes. When I looked up, I saw long, sleek pale legs outstretched confidently, leading up to the flawless body of a vampire, blonde hair grazing the top of her breasts. A white bikini, a feigned innocence. Red eyes locking with mine as I pulled myself onto the dusty rocks. "Good morning," said Angelique, fangs fleetingly flashing in the back of her mouth. "I was hoping I'd find your pet wolf here but, alas. I guess I just have you to work with today. If you're looking for a fight, you found one you won't win," I said. Angelique laughed like wind chimes. "I love your confidence. Admirable, really." Victoria finally surfaced, and immediately pulled herself onto the rocks, poised to strike without even shaking the water from her fiery hair. I snarled, "I'm guessing that vampire posing as Bella is with you." Angelique gave a girlish giggle and I narrowed my eyes. "Venganza," she purred. "Yes. Her gift is remarkable, isn't it? Mine pales in comparison. Why are you here?" Victoria demanded, dragging herself out of the water. "Wouldn't you like to know?" Pause. "Amunet sent me to speak to Rosalie but you are quite intriguing. I see the bloodlust in your eyes. They may have turned gold but they were much more flattering bright red. Rosalie, come realize your destiny. Join us. We swear not to harm your wolf, and we will spare the Cullens if you join us." "I'm not joining your murder cult." I shook my head, splattering water all over the stone. Angelique only smiled, as if she knew something I did not. Harsh words. "You loved human blood. Come with us, find your destiny, Lee. RN the true ways of vampires unlike your self-loathing patriarch. Save your wolf. Because we have plans for these poor little Indians. We have plans for the Cullens. We are ready for war on many fronts other than just this pitiful little town in the middle of nowhere. Come with us and Forks and La Push will remain unharmed." I said through clenched teeth. "I don't respond well to threats." "It isn't a threat. It is an incentive. We want to shape you into the person you were destined to be. And Victoria, you as well. You could even bring your pet wolf," said Angelique. "Indulge your dark side. Become that creature of dark fantasies." I frowned. "If your intention is working with the devil, you need only look in the mirror." Angelique laughed again. Victoria gave me a look that I did not comprehend. I wondered if she had any inclination to join the person who held her captive and intended to kill her. It seemed like madness to me. I could not betray who I knew I was, and I certainly could not leave Bella. As I contemplated this behind my wide eyes, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. I knew she would not have sent Angelique into wolf territory alone. Of course she would not. I stood up and braced myself for a fight. I refused to be taken prisoner again. I refused to be a damsel in distress. "What do you want?" Victoria demanded, rising to stand at my side. "Merely to talk. Is that criminal?" purred Amunet. She blew a kiss, matte red lips touching her fawn hands before she exhaled and smirked. Everything you do is criminal, I hissed under my breath. Amunet frowned. You have no idea why I do what I do. You have no idea what it is like to live for thousands upon thousands of years, to be the first of a race. To be the first of a race destined to take its place ruling over others. I begin to snap. There is only one option for order in this world. Either the chaos of mortals, or the perfection of immortals, regally said Amunet, and I could not den. Why her charisma even if I disagreed with her words? They represent chaos, we represent order. We are their salvation, not their destruction. Victoria said, you sound cynical. It is hard not to be, after so much time. Being the first vampire is very lonely. She gazed at me with faux wounded eyes. I saw through it but tried not to let on. I asked, how did it start? How did all of this start? Amunet answered, my immortal life began as things always do, with a woman and a lie. I meant your cult, your war, your crusade. I understood you, she slowly said. It began with my birth as a creature of the night. Tell me about it, I asked. Another time. Amunet waved her hand dismissively. We could talk all night sometime if you come with me. If you make the right choice, not the one Carlyle wants you to make. Carlyle is a wise person, I growled, skin prickling. Amunet retorted coolly, he is blinded by his own self-loathing. Don't talk about him like that. Fine. He is an insignificant vampire in my opinion. He never had use to me like he did to the Volturi. I will happily leave him and his name out of our dealings. What do you ask of me? Come with me, when I leave Washington in 2 days' time. Come with me, and fulfill my destiny. Yes. I exchanged a glance with Victoria and then looked up. If you can promise me answers, I'm in, I said, filled with terror at my own decision. Amunet smiled and extended her hand. I took it and firmly shook it. Fine. I would do it. I would pursue my destiny even if everyone told me I was a fool for doing it. I needed these answers like humans needed oxygen. I'm coming too, said Victoria. Fine. Amunet shrugged one shoulder and helped Angelique to her feet. I can always use more vampires on my side. I'm not on your side, I'm on Rosalie's. So be it. When I arrived home, Alice was waiting for me in my room. She also happened to have set up countless candles, all burning in my bedroom, illuminating it in a romantic fashion. What is this? I asked, glancing around at the candles and flowers. Bella is on her way, said Alice. Why? I harshly demanded. Alice averted her eyes and looked about to cry. Because I can see the future. And I know what you're going to do with Victoria. I'm not going to try to change your mind but I just want you to see her before you leave. I struggled to find a way to explain myself. But I couldn't. I could just murmur, Alice. Please. For me. And for Bella. She needs closure, until you're still planning on coming back when you're done, right? Of course. I could never leave my family forever. I hugged Alice. I stared at the candles for a few minutes before I heard clumsy footsteps thudding on the stairs. No vampire walked like that, it had to be a wolf. Bella, I said without turning around. Bella swan bounded into my bedroom. Rose, are you okay? I found out what happened with that Venganza leech. Alice shot us a smile and Tihen left, closing us in the room on her way out. What did Alice tell you? That you're leaving. Please don't hate me. I couldn't. Not if I tried. Silence. You want to find your destiny. I understand. I clenched my fists. You shouldn't. You should be angry. I'm not. Bella kissed me and I no longer remembered how to argue. She smelled like heaven. And when she kissed me again and again, O's lips trailing along my jaw towards my ear, I could no longer worry about anything else in the world but the wolf before me. Bella nipped my ear and I shuddered softly. She pulled back slowly and I gazed at her beauty in the candlelight. She asked softly, can I ask why you're still a virgin? You've been alive for a long time and you're so beautiful. I took a long while to reply, and she waited patiently. At first I was still struggling after the abuse I faced, later, I just wanted it to be special and with the right person. And I didn't find the right person until I met you. I kissed Bella softly on the lips and my heart fluttered fiercely. Bella said cavalierly, I thought about waiting for marriage, but now this is special. This is special for me. And the candles are a great touch. Alice put them up. Bella cracked a smile. Of course she did. I stepped towards her. It was intimidating to say the least, and not nearly as smooth as I imagined it to be. All I could do was kiss her and slowly take her feverish body in my icy arms. She clung to me as we crushed our lips together again and again. Bella reached down to the hem of her cheap t-shirt and pulled it off of Herschel. In a swift motion not unlike unwrapping a present. My eyelashes fluttered as I soaked in the sudden sight of rippling muscles and a cute gray bra with a little bow on it. I slid my dress down and of myself before moving close to Bella again. We kissed frantically as I unzipped her jeans and helped her out of them. Slowly, I brushed my hand over her breast. She took in a soft, sharp breath. I leaned in and pressed the inside of my thigh against her fiery core. Her every muscle tensed. She ran her fingers through my hair as we crushed our lips together yet again and her tongue traveled the world within my lips. We pulled back and then together and then I softly kissed her cheek. My teeth nipped her neck before I realized what I was doing. They sank in as she moaned and then the panic coursed through me like I was hit by a poisonous dart. I pulled back before I drew more than the tantalizing bit of blood in my mouth. I'm sorry. Bella, I'm so sorry. Bella just stared at me in shock for a moment before diving in for another kiss. We tumbled together on my plush bed awkwardly and frantically and passionately from dusk until dawn. Blank. Bella. Blank. Rosalie and I made it halfway through Romeo plus Juliet before I could no longer pretend to be calm. Charlie had bolted out to probably get into a fist fight with Billy and I wondered if one of my fathers would end up dead by the end of the night. Breaking free of Rosalie's ice-cold arm, I rose from the sofa onto my feet and wordlessly started looking for my shoes and keys. Rosalie slowly stood up as I rummaged through my orange JanSport backpack. Bella, she said, you shouldn't interfere. Let Billy and Charlie work this out. I have to. He's my dad. Charlie is my dad, I insisted, hoping that statement would still be true by morning. Imagine if it was Carlisle. Rosalie pursed her flawless, glossy, plump pink lips. I gazed pleadingly into her eyes until she huffed and started slipping on her light purple ballet flats. She said, I suppose he must be heading to La Push. My thoughts exactly. I grabbed my keys at last and wiggled my feet into my Converse without bothering to untie the laces. Should I come with you? Asked Rosalie, her brow knit. I know I'm about as welcome in La Push as herpes. Please do, I begged. I knew I was too amped up to safely face this alone. Rosalie nodded. All right, but let me drive. You're far too emotional to be safe. My Imprint drove like a bat out of hell on our way to La Push. She seemed calm, unlike me. But she tensed up when she crossed the treaty border. As soon as we arrived, we saw Charlie's car outside at Billy's house and I jumped out of my truck before Rosalie even had the chance to park it. I ran inside without even looking back at my Imprint and broken glass crunched beneath my shoes. I heard raised voices and my heart fluttered in my chest. Dad, I called out before realizing how foolish using that word was. Charlie. I ran into the kitchen and saw Charlie leaning against the dated cabinets. Even from afar he loomed over the wheelchair-bound Billy. Yet, my biological father had the look of the wolf in his eyes and it would scare away most men who had not been lifelong cops. Men who hadn't just learned that their wife kept a horrid secret for 17 years. Bella, get out, barked Charlie, using a tone of voice I had not heard since I was a toddler. Billy and I have something to deal with. Please, I begged, sweaty fists clenched. Please don't do this. Charlie turned to me. Neither of us blames you. This isn't your fault. But we have a problem to settle. A score to settle. I began to step forward but a cold hand pulled me back. Rosalie turned me around to face her. I had the sudden urge to bite her, as much as I loved her, as much as I could never hurt her whether I was a wolf with an imprint or a human purely in love. We need to let them work this out. Let's check out those fairy lights on the porch. I think they're new, offered the blonde vampiress. I hated her calm tone. I hated her kindness. I hated the she thought she could control me just because I imprinted on her. As livid as I was, I could not disobey nor disappoint her. I followed her out the door as Charlie and Billy resumed their garbled shouting match. Maybe I can stop them. You didn't let me stop them, I said harshly, glowering at her beautiful, beautiful face. Rosalie seized my hand. They need to work this out, okay? Without you interfering. I took you here to make sure Charlie and Billy were safe, but this can't involve you as much as you want it to. I was not certain at first, but now that is apparent. I am sorry you must go through this. I guess it was bound to happen eventually, I muttered. It will work out, said Rosalie, softly squeezing my hand. They're friends. I doubt they will be much longer, I said, slipping my hand away from Rosalie's. You don't know that. White-hot anger surged through my veins. I shot up and stood over the icy vampiress, my lips curling into a wolfish snarl. You don't know that either. I shouted. My family is falling apart and there's nothing I can do. I clenched my teeth, lips involuntarily pulling back around them, a frightened wolf baring its fangs. Rosalie remained calm, and as much as I did not want to, I hated her for it. It enraged me that she took this so lightly, that she took my life so lightly. Nothing lasts forever, said Rosalie coolly. But new things are born from ashes. I'm getting sick of our poetic vampire philosophy. You don't even remember what it was to be mortal, so acting like you understand me is just the kind of thing a leech would do. A leech? Rosalie's golden eyes smoldered, molten. I'm trying to help. You're trying to understand what a leech never can. Family. Love. Mortality. Tears started to pour my eyes and my chest shuddered with sobs. Rosalie's nostrils flared as she gracefully pushed herself to her feet. She did not say a single word to me before she stepped off of the porch and vanished into the night. She left me crying. I was crying my eyes out, scared and angry and alone, and she left. She just walked off without caring. I stood gasping for breath, my internal temperature an inferno. Even though I felt bitter remorse for the horrible things I said to my beloved Imprint, I was still preoccupied with the fight between my dad and Billy. The next idea that occurred to me drove me to grab my phone from my pocket and dial Renee's number. Something crashed inside of the house. Ring. I wondered if Jacob was home. Ring. Or his sister. Ring. Bella. Inquired my mother perkily, as if she never committed such a horrible sin 18 years ago. Mom. I choked on my tears. Mom, there's a problem. Bella, you don't sound okay, whispered Renee tenderly. I'm not okay, I croaked. Mom. I burst into tears. Mommy. Dad and Billy are fighting. They know what you kept from them. Renee played dumb, and it only added to the growing inferno of anger burning wildly in my gut. What did I keep from them? That Billy is my real father. I screeched. Dad is really pissed. How did they find out? Asked my mom breathlessly, her tone shifting in an instant. It's complicated. Bella, Before Renee could say the rest of her sentence, Charlie stepped out onto the porch. Charlie barked in a tone that made me snap to attention like a little soldier. Bells, we're going home. And you're not coming back to La Push under any circumstances. Dad, I cried out. Don't argue with me now. Take your truck. Let's go. I didn't argue with him. I didn't know how. 30 minutes before sunrise, I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, trying to absorb how horribly wrong everything in my life went in just one night. Even though Charlie ordered me to go to sleep, I didn't even close my eyes for more than half a second before the adrenaline hit me again. I waited for Rosalie to call or text me, as I was too frightened to call or text her. I waited for Billy or Jake to give me an update. I waited for my mom to call back. I waited for Charlie to check on me. Yet, I received radio silence. It took everything in me to keep myself from crying. The summer sun rose abysmally early. As grateful as I was to no longer be wallowing in the dark, I didn't want today to come. Everything was just wrong, so wrong. That night, I stared at my dad over a bowl of mushy spaghetti. We had not exchanged a word since we left Billy's, and he forbade me from returning to La Push. Bella, Charlie trailed off and grunted, brown it. You're my dad. You raised me. You were always there for me. You're my dad and I love you. Pause. Blood doesn't make a family, I added, thinking of the Cullens. Love does. I wanted to hear that. You're always going to be my Bells. I don't blame you for keeping it secret, but was it to protect your mom or to protect Billy? I was scared to tell you because I was scared you would stop loving me. I blushed and stared down at my unappetizing dinner. Charlie furrowed his brow, looking vaguely aghast. I averted my eyes. I'd never stop loving you. I remember the day you were born. It changed my world. I saw you and everything shifted. I knew nothing would ever be the same. But not in a bad way. Nothing can change that. You're my daughter, said Charlie, a man infamously few of words. I never expected him to give a speech other than the Miranda rights. It left me dumbstruck. Thanks, was all I could manage. I stood up and hugged him before fleeing to my bedroom. I again waited for Rosalie to text me. Not a word from my imprint. School started tomorrow and I was terrified to see her. I stood at school on the first autumnal day of the year. It was 3 days after the first day of school and I had yet to talk to Rosalie. She seemed scared to approach me and I was too afraid to make the first move. I called Jake and Leah almost every day just to bitch about it. The air smelled of petrichor. Everyone but me wore a sweater, and the sky was overcast. Autumn in Washington would be awfully ugly if it weren't for the beautiful leaves and copious access to pumpkin spice lattes. I was holding one that Jessica brought me. Jess was at my side. It was our lunch break. Did you and Rosalie break up? I noticed she was sitting with the Cullens and don't act like I didn't notice you basically pushing me outside into this rainy hellscape so I wouldn't see. Jessica took a sip from her Starbucks cup. I deeply sighed and played with my coarse hair. I don't know what's going on with us. We had a fight and now she won't text me anymore. I'm too scared to bother her with texts of my own. I think I really hurt her feelings. I don't know what to do. I wrapped my arms around myself. Jessica huffed. All couples have fights. Good couples deal with them. I think things have been weird between us for a while. Ever since Amunet told Rosalie about her special destiny, nothing has been quite the same. Sucks. Jessica final. Why shoved her phone into her pocket and looked me in the eye. I'm sure she'll come around. I sighed and tried to smile. I hope so. I heard the rev of an engine just as Jessica exclaimed, "Yum. That's my brother." I slapped her shoulder gently. She giggled. He's still yummy. Is he on the market? Her eyes glowed as brightly as reading lamps. Jess, I chided as Jake jumped out of the car and walked over to me. Jacob, I'm not allowed to see you. I know, but I have a cool surprise in La Push. It's the best way to take your mind off of a girl. I have school. My lunch break is almost over. Okay. She only has math and environmental studies left and they're both as interesting as a TED Talk by the color beige, chimed Jessica. She's in. Your cute friend can come too, said Jacob. I fought the urge to roll my eyes. I don't want to betray my dad. Our dad misses you. My stomach churned. Oh, come on Bella, whined Jessica. You're such a goody two-shoes. Have some fun for once. In that moment, I could not help but relent. I missed La Push and the pack and couldn't fight the desire to go home. Yeah, home. Jessica and I hopped into the rabbit and off we went. My head spun. For the first time in my life. I felt like a bad kid. I was not sure if I liked the feeling or not. All I could think about was how much I wished Rosalie were here. However, once we hit the highway, all thoughts of Rosalie were replaced by a neon sign flashing in my head that read in glaring letters, "Charlie is going to kill you." When we arrived in La Push, I couldn't think of anything to say to Billy. I stood there picking at my lips in awkward silence as he ran his hand over his wheelchair wheel in a steady but shaky pattern. We both searched for words but could not find them. Jacob cleared his throat and interrupted with, better show the girls the bikes. Bikes. What came to mind was my old blue bike with the pink basket. The neighbor girl was my first crush, but I didn't know it at the time. She was cute and blonde and from England. When we swam in the kiddie pool in her backyard, her mom called swimsuits, bathing costumes, and she would tell me to throw stuff in the bin. She stole my heart and she stole my blue bike with the pink basket. Jessica linked her elbows together, still eyeing Jacob in a way that made me uncomfortable, as we walked out into the drizzle of rain and Jake led us to the back shed, which might as well be a second garage, and unveiled 2 decrepit motorcycles. I scrunched up my face in thought. This is supposed to take my mind off of Rosalie. Of course it is. Jacob patted the decrepit handlebars on one of the bikes. Engines before girls. That's how it works. Jessica crossed her arms over her chest with a flirtatious smile on her glossy lips. Oh, really? Really? Shot back Jake with a playful grin. Do you two need some privacy? I teased. No, promptly replied Jessica. Good. So, motorcycle maintenance. I wasn't sure about it. But I was kind of willing to try anything at this point other than wallowing in bed waiting for Rosalie to text me. Yeah, said Jacob, smiling sweetly at me. I'll teach you all about it. You really do need to take your mind off that petty girl. She's not petty. I protested, my lips pulling back to bare my teeth. Jacob did not stand down, even though I was alpha. She's ignoring you for no reason and making you all squirrely. I'm never going to understand Blondie. She's just complicated. I insisted. No, said Jacob. Algebra is complicated. Rosalie Hale is fucking AP Calculus. Jessica giggled. I clenched my jaw and stepped towards the bikes. The doorbell rang while I was in the middle of watching television and checking my phone every 5 seconds for a text from Rosalie. I got up and walked to the door, hating myself for hoping it was Rosalie holding a bouquet of flowers. Hell, I would even take Rosalie holding a dead bird at this point. But when I opened it, I saw the last person I ever expected. Mom. I choked, eyes bulging. I didn't know you were in town. Your father and Billy both are ignoring my calls about what happened, and so are you. Don't worry, I'm staying in a hotel in Port Angeles. Okay. Why are you here? Well, I already called your dad and he's at a police conference in Seattle. I know. He's meeting me tonight when the conference day is over. I thought I'd surprise you and maybe spend the day with my daughter before I meet up with Charlie, she said warmly. I lunged forward and hugged her. Her soft arms and the smell of her ch perfume soothed me as I clung to her for a little too long. I missed my mom. I needed her while I was hurting. It's really good to see you, I said in earnest. I would love to meet the infamous Rosalie Hale, said my mom. Crushing all of my hopes of using my mom to forget my imprint. Your dad wants to meet me in Seattle tonight. Maybe we can get lunch there and go visit the zoo. It isn't too bad of a drive, 3 hours or so. Although I did not want to see Rosalie, keeping my mom away from Charlie and Billy was my current imperative. That sounds good. I'll text her. Renee beamed. I could not fathom how or why she was taking this so lightly. Her actions recently destroyed 2 families and she had her mind only on my girlfriend. My imprint. My mate. My leech. Go ahead then, my mom prodded. I stood agape for a few moments before I withdrew my phone from my pocket and texted Rosalie. She might be busy, I weakly offered. I knew there was a high chance my girlfriend would ignore me. Yet, Rosalie almost immediately texted me back. My heart fluttered in my chest, I was not sure why. In fact, I was not sure how I felt about meeting up with Rosalie at all, after she just bailed on me over one insult. Everything became unstable after that. 20 minutes later, and after a drive through the rain, Rosalie met us in the dreary parking lot of Forks High. Renee nudged me with her elbow. You didn't tell me she had such a nice car. Just how rich is this young lady? Renee's eyes sparkled. Of course, I suppose I should have expected that. Hey, Rose, I said breathlessly. Uncertain of how she would receive me. Rosalie kissed me gently on the lips. It was the best I could have hoped for. Why don't we go see some cute animals? Purred Rosalie so smoothly that my heart fluttered. Renee extended her hand as I stepped back. Rosalie shook it and then stepped in to swiftly kiss my mother on both cheeks. Renee smirked at me and I suppressed a sigh of frustration. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Dwyer. Quote, call me Renee. The Mrs. word makes me feel so old. Renee smiled and Rosalie subtly bat her eyelashes. The seduction of a vampire was truly useful in the meet the parents situation, it seemed. At least with someone as addicted to flattery and impressed by beauty as my mom. I can drive if you would like, said Rosalie. You must be exhausted from traveling. Thank you, sweetheart, said Renee. Rosalie opened the car door for Renee. God, she was good at this. After lunch at Pegasus Pizza, is she anorexic? Whispered Renee. She's such a sweet girl. I don't want her to be sick. No, she's just on a reduction diet for swimsuit season, I said, giving the standard vampire excuse Rosalie always uses. Better than her yarfing up Hawaiian pizza and Sprite behind the restaurant while I stood guard. Okay. Renee still looked worried. That was her true downfall. Not flightiness or her hints of vanity. She cared. Deeply, strongly. She cared about them too fast, sometimes. Once I asked my mother if she had ever fallen in love and she responded that she did 5 times a day. It was beautiful, in some ways, but it made me worry about her as much as she was worrying about Rosalie not eating. I'm going to powder my nose in the ladies' room, said Renee. You two wait for me, please. Does she seem worried about my dad and Billy to you? I asked as soon as Rosalie and I were alone. Rosalie said, "You don't need 4 college degrees to see your mom's in pain." She ordered a second Bloody Mary for her dessert. I examined my hands. "Yeah, it'll be okay. I promise." Rosalie smiled at me and it did melt away my worries for a few seconds. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about my mom and her dessert, as my mother left the bathroom and we all set out for the Woodland Park Zoo. We stood at the wolf exhibit side by side. I gazed down at my brethren while Rosalie hovered near me and Renee sat on a bench rubbing her sore foot. In the enclosure, 2 female wolves sat with a baby, resting, basking in the shade and the sun at the same time. An alpha wolf patrolled the perimeter, protecting its family. Rosalie was my imprint. I was supposed to protect her. Instead, I just protected myself and let myself slip away for 2 entire weeks before sending her a single text. She did not seem to be deep in thought about symbolism, however. She looked at the wolves exactly the same way she looked at all of the other animals. "Oh, look at the baby," crooned Rosalie, striding smoothly across the uneven pavement to gaze at the curled-up wolf cub. Protected by a female that basked in the sun, I interlaced our fingers and smiled softly as I looked at the tiny wolf. Maybe one day we would have puppies. I looked up at her and saw my future in her eyes. I wrapped my fingers around the bars, turning my gaze back to the sleeping alpha wolf. "I'm sorry for everything. How I acted. What I said. I'm sorry. You don't have to be. I know you were suffering and I know you didn't mean it." "Then why were you so angry?" "I never was. I thought you wanted space so I gave it to you. I love you. I was afraid for so many reasons, but I'm not afraid anymore." Rosalie rubbed her lips together and took my hand in hers. I am still afraid to take the leap," said Rosalie. "I need to be honest. It's okay. I would wait until the end of time." I kissed her softly on the lips. Leah called me in the afternoon while I was doing my environmental studies homework. She mumbled frantic things about Rosalie, vampires, Amunet, a Prison. She took who was now tied up and unconscious in Billy's house. I sprung to my feet and ran to the front door, hopping into my Converse as I dashed down the hallway. But then Charlie blocked my path. "You better not being going to La Push. Quote, Rosalie is having a panic attack. I need to comfort her," I hastily said and Charlie eyed me, looking for a lie. I never was much good at it, but, thankfully, he believed me. I ran out and got into my truck, driving at a safe but frantic speed to the reservation. When I arrived, I walked into Billy's house to see half of the pack waiting for me, glaring at each other. I imagined they had just been bickering about the prisoner vampire. "What's going on?" I glanced between Leah, Jake, Sam and the unconscious woman tied to Billy's patched-up armchair. She smelled like a vampire. And I wouldn't need 3 guesses to figure out for whom she worked. "She's with Amunet," said Leah. "Her name is Venganza according to the Ginger Cullen." "Victoria was here?" I asked, furrowing my brow. "Trespassing here," grunted Sam, his lips twisting into a sour expression. I held up my hand to silence him and locked eyes with Leah. "Is Rose okay?" I asked. Leah nodded and shrugged. "Yeah, but she and Scary Spice left in a big hurry." Pause. "You know how leeches have those freaky powers. This one is a shapeshifter. She posed as you to trick Rosalie. If I hadn't been out swimming." I eyed Venganza closely. The smell of her was overpoweringly wrong. "She seems dangerous. That rope won't keep her from escaping." "But wolves can," said Sam, a smile flickering briefly across his strong face. I turned to my favorite wolf in the pack. "Leah, you should have killed her." She protested, entirely ignoring my authority. "We want to know more about Amunet, don't we? Maybe this leech can help." My phone rang before I could argue with my pack. "Alice." I needed to answer. Rose could be in trouble after Amunet's cronies showed up here. I answered and stepped outside her into Billy's backyard. "Is she okay?" I asked, feeling as if I had been punched in the gut or drank some weird Polish vodka. "She isn't home yet," said Alice, "but I had a vision you need to know about. Rosalie is going to join Amunet." "That doesn't make any sense," I said, but the numbness in my fingertips belied my attitude of certainty. If it meant leaning about her alleged destiny, my imprint might just join up with the big bad. "I need you to come over here. We can't stop her, but I think you need to remind her or to say goodbye at least, if you can't change her mind." "I'll be right there." I hung up and walked back into the room, my pack staring at me. I've got a problem back in Forks. No one leave Venganza alone. Aye, skipper, said Leah with a salute. Wordlessly, I headed out to my truck and started to drive. Last night, Rosalie and I did the horizontal monster mash. I slipped home after a morning of gentle kisses and coffee made in a dusty, unused machine. I came home and lied in my bed. Staring at the ceiling, I rubbed the bite mark on my neck. It had already healed thanks to my Wolverine wolf powers, but thanks to the strength of a vampire, it left slightly iced half-moon-shaped markings that glowed white even against my pale skin. Her teeth had dug deep, and I knew she regretted taking a taste of me. I knew it probably hurt her that she did that. We finished having sex, but she still stared at the mark with shame as I got ready in the morning to return home. If she chose to leave, if I hadn't changed her mind by sleeping with her and reminding her of our love, these marks would forever be a reminder of the imprint I failed to keep forever at my side. And after losing my virginity, something was different inside of me. Something sweet and unknown, longing for a home deep within my body. I was lost in it before someone knocked on my window. When I looked up, I saw Rosalie perched on a tree. Slowly, I rose to my feet, walking on tired legs to open the window and let her inside. She hopped down onto my carpet. After our kiss broke, she handed something to me. Go on, open it, she said as I examined the small ring box. I felt my throat constrict. What is this? Please don't let her be proposing to me. I don't want it like this, I thought. When I opened it, I saw a crown diamond ring set in rose gold. It was gorgeous, with a rose on it made from white gold that reminded me of Beauty and the Beast. What is this? I asked quietly as Rosalie took the liberty of slipping it onto my finger. It's a promise ring, Bella. I'm making a promise with it, Rosalie whispered, setting her finger under my chin and lifting my eyes to meet hers. They looked sad, weak, broken. I hoped that I had not done that to her. Maybe she changed her mind about leaving. As I considered that, my heart fluttered with hope. What are you promising? I dared to ask. Rosalie kissed my cheek and whispered, that I'll come back. My heart sunk into my stomach. Hopes officially dashed. Bella. Blank, _ blank. 2 hours after Rosalie abandoned me, I stood in front of our captive, Venganza, hands on my hips. The new promise ring dug into the bare skin where my shirt rode up slightly. All I could think about was watching Rosalie walk away despite knowing I needed to focus on the prisoner in front of me. Seth and Paul stood in wolf form just behind me, ready to hurt or kill her if need be. Leah and Jacob remained human, a few feet behind the wolves. Welcome to the wolf den, I said coolly, trying to keep any trace of emotion out of my voice. I hope you enjoy your stay. She snarled at me as the pack drew closer and closer. You can't break me. I shook my head and leaned forward as menacingly as I could manage. You'd be surprised. The only reason you're alive is because my pack wants to know more about your cult leader, Amunet. You are about to endure pain that you as a vampire never thought you could. Because compared to us, you're as vulnerable as a human is. And human beings endure, and scream, and suffer. So the only way you can avoid facing the pain you are about to receive is to do exactly what a human would do and tell us what you know. Venganza snorted. I fear Amunet more than I fear pain. My pack and I fear nothing. I shrugged. Jacob smiled. Leah winked. Venganza shook her head slowly as a smug smile spread across her face. You should be afraid. Why is that? I slowly inquired. Arrow's guard is hunting Amunet as we speak. They'll find her soon enough. They asked me to join them. Arrow did always covet my gift. She looked so proud of herself that I wanted to retch. So, you're trying to tell me that you turned the Volturi down? At great cost. They've been given orders to kill me on sight. That sounds like something you deserve. I bored my eyes into hers until she looked away. But finally, offering an unhinged smile, she returned her gaze to mine, this time truly unafraid. You will pay a great cost as well. Your Rosalie has just joined Amunet, and the Volturi does not discriminate. They will end her, and end her cruelly. The only way you're getting her back is when the Volturi mail her to you piece by piece. My hair stood on end as she spoke. Paul growled at the vampire when he sensed my tension. He never had the temperament for keeping control. He pounced before I could stop him. And she broke free of her bonds, dodging nimbly out of the way as her body changed. As she roughly shoved Paul into a wall and looked up at me, I saw Rosalie. It was Rosalie, every detail of her. Reaching out to me and mouthing, "Help. Shapeshifter." It was just a shapeshifter. I needed to remember that. But I couldn't kill her. I couldn't do it. I couldn't raise a finger. She looked just like my imprint. And my body froze from the innate inability to harm Rosalie, fake or not. Jacob saved the day. He shifted and jumped forward. I suppressed a yelp of terror as he tore out the throat of Rosalie Hale with his teeth. And then snapped her neck. Her head rolled across the floor and her body fell limp, no longer Rosalie but Venganza. I could breathe again. But now that Venganza was dealt with, my facade broke. I could no longer hold back the dam of emotions in me about to burst. Even though I knew I had to stay strong as the alpha, losing my imprint broke me. I devolved into a mess of sobs that made my entire body shudder. "Bella?" asked Leah softly, stepping forward. "She left," I choked out between sobs. "Rose left." "I'm sorry," said Leah so genuinely that I needed to take a deep breath to keep tears at bay. She gently squeezed my arm and the struggle to hold them back became even more difficult. Jake sulked away, pounding his paws over to his bedroom, I assumed to get dressed. And also to avoid my emotional outburst. Leah embraced me and both of our muscular, feverish bodies shook with my sobs. As I stepped outside to go home, Jake stopped me on the porch, dressed in new clothes. "Bella?" asked Jacob. "Bells, are you handling this okay?" I remained silent. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to answer. "Don't shut me out. Don't shut the pack out. We need you." "Well, I need Rosalie more." I roared and he recoiled. "I'm sorry. He walked back into the house. I wiped away my tears and tried to stand up straighter. All I wanted was to lie down and never get out of bed again. But that was not an option. The cover story to Charlie and everyone else was that Rosalie went on a medical internship and left me behind. If I told him the truth, I would end up in a padded cell. As I sat having coffee with him before school, he finally addressed it. "I'm sorry about Rose," he said, staring into his chipped mug of steaming black coffee. "I know. Teen relationships don't last, but you two were more serious than I've ever seen kids be." He shifted awkwardly in his seat and sipped his coffee before speaking again. "How are you holding up?" I took a deep breath, unsure how to answer him. This isn't what I intended to happen, but nothing is ever certain in life, is it? He swallowed, face flushed. "When your mom and I broke up." My expression stopped whatever comment he was going to make. "Dad, it's okay," I lied. "Rose made the best decision for her and I support that." He uncomfortably cleared his throat and said, "Well, if you need anything I'm here." "Thanks." By the time I got through 3 miserable periods at school that day, I found out it seemed rumors had quickly spread about Rosalie leaving town. In a small place like Forks, news always traveled fast, and anything at all to gossip about would consume the school in 2 seconds flat. Just my luck. As her girlfriend, I figured people would start asking me about her anytime now. When I checked my phone on the way to art class, I had 2 missed calls from Jessica and 1 text that said nothing but "Rosalie." I ignored it as I took my seat and tried not to look at Rosalie's empty one. Deep in my broken heart I held more pain than I thought it could contain. I tried to pour it into my project, but focus was even more impossible here than it was in calculus. It was harder to conceal my emotions than I thought it would be. I was always better at this until I was a wolf. Today, it was hard to keep my shape in more than one way. I should have demanded for her to stay. I should have pinned her down and not let her go. I should have begged her to give me a chance to show her why she should stay with me. All I could hope anymore that wherever she was in the world, she still loved me as much as I loved her. I stared weakly at my half-finished sketch from last week and struggled to pick up my pencil. The Cullens were not at lunch today. I hoped they were off looking for Rosalie. With their fear of Amunet, I did not know how they would be able to let her just run off with, from what I knew, was the evilest of evil vampires in all of history. I barely could restrain myself from going into wolf mode and tracking her down, but I loved her, and I knew that had to stay as a last resort. Jessica tried to sit by me. I made an excuse about needing to study and snuck away from the cafeteria to hide in a graffitied pale pink bathroom stall. The Cullens returned a week and a half later. I ignored and avoided them. They ignored and avoided me except for a few pitying looks. And Alice nearly flinging herself at me before being stifled by my expression. I knew they were good people, well, vampires, but I could not help but blame them for simply letting Rosalie run off with Amunet. They broke my trust somehow and I knew I was being foolish, but I was too angry at them to rationalize a single thought. And it was pretty obvious that they knew that. On Thursday, almost 2 weeks after Rosalie left, I walked into the house on my way home from school to see my dad home early. "How are you doing, kiddo?" he asked, looking a little off. I could smell and sense that he was hiding something, but I was too preoccupied with Rosalie's absence to even want to try to find out what it was. "I'm fine." The honest answer was that I was sick of people asking me that. He wrung his calloused hands. "It's okay to feel hurt after losing a relationship." I said I was fine. "That doesn't mean I'm not hurt." I didn't mean to sound so harsh, but I also didn't apologize. I walked upstairs and found a surprise guest sitting gracefully on my bed. Alice. Charlie let me in. She ground her toe in a soft circle on my hardwood bedroom floor. "I told him you were ignoring us and he kinda. Quote. Oh. He should have told me." Alice changed the subject. "So, have you washed your wallowing clothes yet?" "My wallowing clothes." I almost laughed. She gestured loosely at me. "I haven't seen you wearing anything but those yoga pants and ratty old t-shirts since Rose left. You've always smelled like wet dog to everyone but Rosalie, but I remember when some of those stains were fresh. Do you have a problem with my hygiene?" I teased. "You have hygiene." Alice cocked a mocking eyebrow. I scowled. "I clean up great sometimes. Let me know when it's one of those times." Alice giggled. At first her mirth seemed wholly inappropriate with Rosalie gone. But her joy was infectious. I found myself laughing for the first time since my imprint abandoned me. "It's good to see you laugh. But I can see you're hurting. Are you? Don't ask if I'm okay. You know that I'm not." I touched the promise ring on my finger. "But I'm not going to let this destroy me." "I know you won't. But you don't know that. So here's the deal. All of us Cullens are here for you. All of us. If you ever need anything, you know what coven to call." "Thanks." I knew I wouldn't call them. But it was extremely difficult to want to disappoint Alice Cullen. "Where were you guys anyway?" She sighed, suddenly shifting from bubbly to crestfallen. "Looking for her, but even with all our powers combined, we couldn't find her. Amunet covers her tracks too well even for me." "I'm sorry." I held up my hand. "She gave me this before she left. It's a promise ring and she said the promise was that she would come back." "I'm sure she will. She told me the same thing. Also, okay, you're obviously mad at us and Carlisle and Edward and Jazz and everybody keeps saying to give you space till you make the first contact, but I just can't handle that, okay? So spill. Why are you mad? You should have stopped her. Maybe not you specifically, but one of you should have." Alice's expression flooded me with regret. "I'm really sorry. We tried. Or didn't. Carlisle." She did not elaborate and I was glad of it. "Do you still see her future?" "Sometimes there are snippets, I think when she's away from Amunet. But when she's with Amunet it's like when she's with you. Her future just vanishes." "What are the snippets?" "If I've learned anything from my gift, it's that sometimes knowing the future just tortures you. I just try to remember that my visions aren't ever definite. I'd rather trust my sister and my heart than my visions." I said nothing at first, but then I acted on instinct and lunged forward to hug my friend. She embraced me tightly and held me until I finally stepped back. Alice smiled. I attempted to return one and failed. The next day, of all people, Edward Cullen sat down next to me at lunch. I stared at him for a moment, unsure what to say. I knew Alice had probably told her family about our conversation, but he always had seemed so cold to me due to being unable to read my mind. I never expected him to be the one to reach out to me. He examined me for a moment, as if trying yet again to read my thoughts. "I wanted to talk to you about Rosalie. I want to help you understand why she did what she did." "Why would you want to do that?" I snapped. "Because she loves you and you love her, and she wouldn't want someone she loves and loves her to be living like this right now." "Does she love me?" My voice rose and trembled despite my best efforts to contain it. "Does she even love me? You can't just leave someone you love the way she did." "Well, I have a parlor trick that lets me know how people really feel. And she loves you." I didn't even think Rose was capable of feeling anything as strongly as she feels her love for you. "So, Please be quiet and listen. I left Carlisle once. I was gone for months trying to experience life alone and life drinking human blood. Rosalie doesn't have a craving for human blood, I hissed. It was a partial lie. I knew she craved my blood desperately. We were designed to destroy each other. A wolf made to kill vampires, a vampire who could snap any moment and drink the blood that sang of heaven. Yet, we somehow managed to destroy each other in another way entirely. She has a craving for self-discovery before accepting the imprint. If I understand the wolves right, an imprint means forever. Rosalie is Afra, to commit to forever before she experiences her own life. I figured that much out on my own. Thank you, I snapped. He started to get up and I grabbed his cold wrist to stop him. I'm sorry. Thank you for talking to me. I really do appreciate it. I went back to Carlisle. That's all I needed to say, even though I'm sure you've heard it too many times. I've felt what she felt about finding myself once I'm told I'm stuck a certain way forever and I went home. She will too. Something about his gilded eyes comforted me enough to let the truth softly slip from my lips. I'm just Afra. She won't be the same person when she does. He averted his eyes. It was evident he had the exact same fear. I stared at my food and lost my wolfish appetite. On Saturday, still in what Alice called my wallowing clothes, I sat on the sofa reading my worn copy of Wuthering Heights yet again. Jessica sent me 2 more texts asking if I was missing Rosalie. I ignored them. In addition, I had 2 missed calls from Leah and a long text from Jake to which I hadn't replied. Something inside my heart died, and I no longer could futilely seek to resurrect it. 2 days later, on my way driving home from school, I saw something that seemed like a sign from above. 2 motorcycles in a lawn even more beat up than the ones my half-brother showed me. I remembered what Jacob told me. Engines before girls, he had said. It was his attempt to show me how to take my mind off of Rosalie. I thought I would listen to him and get involved with his project, but I had not been to La Push or even answered a message from a single member of the pack in almost 3 weeks. I stopped my car. This seemed too much like it happened for a reason and I could not ignore it. As soon as I crossed the yard, I knocked on the door and a young man almost immediately answered. How much for the motorcycles? I asked, forcing a smile with my palms tightly against my hips. I could feel the promise ring against me again and it made my stomach churn. Nothing. He shrugged loosely. Their junk we're looking to get taken off our hands. I'll take them. They don't work. Don't worry. I have a friend who builds cars. He may be my brother. But friend was probably the better word in Forks. I didn't want Charlie to get weird questions. I still felt like he was too forgiving saying he was still my dad and not Jay. Kicking me back to my mom or off to Billy. Cool. Do you need help? They're not light. No thanks. He looked impressed as I picked one up with ease, loaded it in the back of my truck, and then returned for another. You must hit the gym a lot. I do, I lied. You need good muscles if you want to pick up the ladies. He grinned and looked me up and down. Maybe literally in your case. I laughed. I thanked him probably more than was necessary, and we exchanged a goodbye. I got in my truck and turned the key in the ignition. Next stop, La Push. The garage felt separate from my broken world. Something about it seemed so alive and vibrant that I felt less dead while inside. Are we trying to get enough bikes for the whole pack? Laughed Jacob as I showed him my haul. I teased, why not? Does a werewolf motorcycle gang not sound cool to you? The pack has really missed you. It's only been 3 weeks. My throat felt dry. I knew that was a long time, although I would never be able to admit it. I know. 3 weeks is ages without the alpha or whatever. That's what Sam keeps saying, at least. Jacob shrugged. A growl began to rise in the back of my throat. I knew he was not complaining. He was continuing his quest to dethrone me. What else is Sam saying? I almost leapt forward before restraining myself. The same bullshit. He keeps trying to weasel his way around your orders so he can act like he's campaigning to be alpha. Is the pack listening? No. You're an outsider and I know nobody trusts you fully, but they've accepted your role fine. What is his problem with me? He was the first to turn. He went through a lot, stuck in his form for 2 weeks, nobody telling him he wasn't crazy until old Quill figured it out. And then you come to town and take charge. Not to mention what he went through with Leah. I stared at my feet. My heart ached for him, but I also knew I would never surrender my role as alpha. Let's get working on these bikes. Can't have a werewolf motorcycle gang without them. Now can we? Jacob grinned. I spun a wrench around my nimble fingers. That night, I dreamt about Rosalie and I having a child. It should have been a good dream. Especially since as two women it would never happen for us, but it was a nightmare. The baby painfully clawed its way out of me, and in my arms was grotesque with pitch black fur and scarlet slit-pupilled eyes and long, dark claws instead of fingernails, blood dripping from its mouth. I was drenched in cold sweat and my blankets were so soaked it was as if they had been dunked in a river. Running so hot as a wolf certainly did not help my shivering. "Bella," came Charlie's voice from the door. "Bella, are you okay?" I got up and walked unsteadily to the door. "Just a nightmare, Dad. UW. Air screaming like you were being murdered. Almost gave me a heart attack," he said, drawing a sharp breath. "I'm fine. Really. I hoped my lie was not as transparent as it felt." He shot me a skeptica. L glance but eventually returned to his bedroom and started snoring more quickly than I thought he would. I sat on my floor, shivering, and toyed with the promise ring on my finger until morning. On Saturday, I hiked to the waterfall with Jacob. I did not tell him it was Rosalie and I's place. He only agreed to come to help me cope with the loss of my imprint, and I was fairly certain no one will consider chasing her memory to be healthy coping. "I didn't take you for a such intense hiker, Bells," said Jacob, spreading out his large, muscular arms to take in the fresh air. "This place is awesome." "Yeah, I found it a while ago but it's a long way so this is my first time back in ages." He turned to me with an uncomfortable sympathy and pity in his dark eyes. "It's good you're doing things, you know. Sitting around thinking about the leech isn't healthy. Why is any of that your business?" I snapped. He ignored my irritation this time. "I'm your brother. I'm supposed to be there for you when you're down. And if you want me to track down Rosalie and drag her hot leech ass back here I'd be glad to." It hurt. It hurt that I was surrounded by people who loved me but every word or act compassion simply made me bitter and angry. "Let's not talk about Rose today," I said, sitting down on a small boulder by the riverbank. "No problem. So what's up with that hot friend of yours?" "Jessica." The truth was, I had no idea. I hadn't spoken to her since Rosalie left, and once I ran out of excuses she ran out of patience. I racked my brain for rumors. "A couple people said she hooked you with Mike Newton at a party but I think she's still on the market." "Nice." I frowned. "It wouldn't be fair to her if you dated." "What do you mean? You think she's that out of my league?" He smiled boyishly. "No, I mean, once you imprint it'd be a lot like Sam and Leah and that didn't end well." He remained silent for some time before stating firmly, "I think we can fight it." I thought of Rosalie, and how she bound me to this earth rather than gravity. It was the best and most powerful feeling I had ever experienced. "Why would you want to?" I asked, utterly perplexed. "Because I don't think it's fair. It's the worst part of being a wolf." He stopped that line of thought with an expression as if he were angry at himself. I had no clue why. I wanted him to explain further but I was not going to push him. "You know, Jared imprinted while you were missing in action." "On who?" I feigned interest, but I could not care less. "A girl at school. Kim. He's introducing us to her this weekend if you want to come to the party." It sounded like a dreadful time, but I forced myself to say, "Of course I do." I got thinking too, that between you and Sam and Jared the legend said imprinting was rare. None of our grandfathers did. What if it happens to all of us? Take it from someone who can't even sleep or eat anymore because she worries about the future too much. Try not to be too concerned about what might happen, okay? Promise me that. He didn't, but I accepted that it would be easier said than done, especially since I was being such a hypocrite. He rocked back and forth atop he tree stump where he sat before leaning forward and saying quietly, "I know I said I wouldn't talk about Rosalie today, but I noticed something." "Yeah, I steeled myself for the worst." He stared at his tattered tennis shoes. "You've always got your arms around yourself now, like you're trying to hold yourself together." I pursed my lips, no idea how to answer. He took an uncomfortable look at me and gestured at the crystalline water. My brother, who knew he said something that pained me, whipped off his shirt and jumped in to escape the situation. And I followed him. I didn't want to think about it either. They say if you drink enough vodka it tastes like love. Maybe I was never in love because I had almost a whole bottle and it tasted nothing like Rosalie. I conjured an image of her in my mind as I took another swig. The shape of her perfect lips, the way her golden hair fell, the intoxicating way she smelled. I was on the La Push beach in the dark of the weekend night with the pack. The bonfire was bright. The sea was lapping against the shore and the night rang with the laughter of the wolf pack. But I just sat on my driftwood perch, slowly downing an entire bottle of raspberry Smirnoff. Leah attempted to talk to me, but made so little progress that I knew I needed to somehow dismiss the conversation and set her free of my broken brain. It doesn't actually matter. Really, in the scheme of things. Nothing matters at all. I stared bitterly at the bottom of the empty bottle, rubbing my sore chapped lips together. Leah furrowed her brow in deep thought. At last she looked up and made eye contact. If nothing really matters, like you say, then why ever settle for being afraid or unhappy? Maybe I was just drunk, but she made more sense than anyone else trying to pull me out of my depression lately. My lack of inhibition drove me shakily to my feet. You're right. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of being unhappy. Good. Leah moved to hug me before I stopped her. We're going to kill Amunet, I said with a sloppy smile. Leah tried to grab me but I slipped away. Okay, look, that isn't. I strode forward towards the bonfire and spoke in a tone that commanded the entire pack to circle around me in silence, all of you. The Alpha has new orders. Bella, you're drunk. This isn't a good idea, quietly pleaded Leah, grabbing at my arm. I didn't listen to her. Here's the deal. Training starts today. We're getting ready to bring the fight to Amunet. I know she and her army are strong. I know even the vampires are afraid of her. But we're not. We're not going to let her continue her conquest, so we're getting in shape starting today. Sam stood up, oh so predictably. So we're taking on the whole evil ancient vampire army, are we? Us. Look at us. Have you lost your mind? Yes. Look at us. We're responsible for protecting people from the whole evil ancient vampire army. Unless she's on her way to Forks, I say we let the leeches deal with their own. That's their plan, isn't it? Do you want to get us all killed? You're a leech lover after all. Maybe you want the casualties. Don't question your alpha, I growled, body on fire. I'm not the only one questioning you. We all are. None of us want to die because you're bitter about the leech stealing your girlfriend. Amunet is a danger to all of us. It's our responsibility to take her down. No, it's not. He began to tremble as I bared my teeth at him. As he started to move forward, transitioning into his wolf form, I advanced on Sam, growling deeply from the alpha within. You need to sit down and shut up right now. He tensed his muscles and opened his mouth to argue. I repeated, more darkly this time, you need to sit down and shut up right now. Finally, he obeyed, looking not unlike a puppy with its tail between its legs. I spun to face the pack. If Amunet is still getting stronger, we need to get stronger too. We need to be ready at any moment to defend ourselves, our home, and humankind. It's time to get this pack ready. Leah said tensely, maybe Sam is right. Why should we do that? Why do you think Amunet is our problem, anyway? We protect our land, not every human and leech in the world. I crossed my arms. One of the most interesting things about being the Alpha is that I don't have to explain myself to anyone. No one dared question me further. Blank. Rosalie. Blank. 3 weeks after leaving Forks, I stood at a dilapidated gas station, tapping my foot impatiently as I waited for Amunet, Victoria and Angelique to return from their hunt, gazing around at this trash Eastern Oregon desert town. The people, the buildings, all of it disgusted me to the very core. I wondered what it would be like if Leonardo da Vinci were alive today to see humanity's progress. He would probably kill himself. Yet, I still did not know how I could hold vampires at a remotely higher level than humans. I had only been traveling with Amunet for a few weeks and already saw too many things that would sicken even a monster. We were here to wait for friends of Angelique's. Amunet never gave me an answer when I asked why they were so important. I was here because my curiosity about Rosalie Hale and her special destiny overwhelmed all else in my mind. I didn't follow her because I truly wanted to help. I just knew I had to leave Forks. Finally, Amunet, Angelique and Victoria returned from their hunt, scarlet eyes glistening. Amunet began to monologue once again as she approached me. I'm rather fascinated by these modern times, walking around the cities. Humans are still humans. They still kill one another for sport, for jealousy, for petty greed. They still let their poor starve. They still pride themselves on ignorance. Humans would sacrifice their own souls to survive, but they never once ask themselves if they deserve to, said Amunet. Maybe they don't. Perhaps she had a point. If she did, I refused to admit it, however. I loved my family. I still was a Cullen even if I was off on this strange journey of self-discovery. Carlyle and our clan believed in the goodness in humanity and protecting humans. I always agreed, but only mostly. I had seen a darker side of humans than they had. Dark enough that at times I wished Carlyle had never found me, because I would have died rather than live forever haunted. I didn't agree with Amunet. But I didn't agree with the optimism of my family either. Every day it became harder and harder to define what I believed in anymore. As the sun set over the trashy signs and broken-down fast food restaurants, I stood on the balcony of our motel room. Amunet and Angelique had left Victoria and I behind to go meet their furry NDS to gather whatever information they sought, and I was in no mood to be trapped in a tiny room with a woman who wanted me in a way I could never want her. I almost jumped when I saw Amunet and Angelique striding up the stairs. Conversing softly in French, Angelique kissed Amunet on the cheek and walked into the motel room, while Amunet walked confidently over to where I stood, frozen in place. Amunet stood beside me, resting her strong pale hands on the railing. I am not opposed to immortal children the way the Volturi is, she drawled, eyeing me in a way that made me truly uneasy. It seemed a very strange way to begin a conversation. That's interesting. I did not know what else to say. I suppose it doesn't matter now that you mated with your wolf. What does that mean? I snarled, gripping the railing fiercely to keep myself from slapping her. That she can have children, children that can live as long as you both. You can have a perfect little family. Oh, a vampire and a werewolf in suburbia. How quaint, don't you think? You and your pet wolf and all the puppies you could ever want. Bella Swan is a person, not a baby factory, and I would never see her as one. And if you think you can bribe me with promises of, I trailed off. This was not a wise time to be angry. I don't see Bella that way. That's all. I thought perhaps you simply had guilt about seeing her as your potential for a baby. So why are you so fixated? Why are you so concerned it isn't right to love her? She's the alpha of a species born to kill vampires. She's my Latua Cantante. We were destined to kill each other and yet I'm her imprint and she's my mate. I think you know there's a reason for that. You don't need my gift to realize it. It should give you hope, not angst. I blinked and stared at the flickering vacancy sign touched by rays of the pink sunset. Hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. Amunet touched my hand. I once believed that. But when you wander the earth since before the construction of the Great Pyramids, you begin to understand that hope is sometimes all you have. You must have been very lonely. It was hard to empathize with her, but perhaps I did understand that one thing. I was, until I met Angelique. She half smiled, eyes glistening. I couldn't help but admit, that was how I felt until I met Bella. Then why did you leave her? I hated that question. I don't know. That was my honest answer. It felt like every small thing reminded me of her and my love for her. It was difficult being away, no matter how much I knew I needed to do this. I know why, said Amunet with the same authority she always used when she spoke. I have lived long enough to know these things. You left her because you are afraid of her, and what she does to your emotions. You need to figure yourself out before you can commit to her. I would rather die than be with anyone but Bella, I vehemently and earnestly insisted. She did not look taken off guard by my ferocity in the slightest. I didn't say you had to sleep your way across the country. Simply that forever is a commitment many struggle to make. At least immediately. It was even difficult for Angelique and I find my charms quite persuasive compared to others. You met her when she was human. I loved her when she was human. You loved a human. Amunet smiled wistfully. She was very bad at being human. And I mean that as a compliment. So was Bella. I smiled faintly at my own joke. Amunet touched my shoulder and strode over to Angelique. Victoria lingered awkwardly beside them, holding the door open. I was Bella's imprint, vampire or not. Bella was my singer, wolf or not. It could be no accident. She wanted to love me, I wanted to tear out her jugular and drink her blood. But the way I had began to think of her, it was becoming clearer and clearer that she was most certainly my mate. A vampire and a vampire slayer. What a match. That night, I left the motel with the excuse of going to hunt again. I still ate only animals, no matter how much they mocked me. But I needed a walk. I needed the cold air against my cold skin and to look up at the stars above the desert town. I could not stop thinking about Bella, specifically the moment in art class when I first noticed how the sun looked reflected in her eyes. I knew I should not have left her, I knew this was as foolish as when Edward ditched Carlisle decades upon decades ago, but I did not regret my choice at the same time. It was a war in my mind. After walking for an amount of time of which I lost track, I came across a church. It looked so much like the one I used to go to eons ago when I was human that I could not help but be drawn to it. I stepped inside. It was a lonely but beautiful place. In fact, it reminded me a little bit of the empty high school during the dance when Bella and I snuck away for a while. Bella. I missed her. I missed her deeply. But this was something I must do before I could truly commit myself to her for eternity. I strode slowly through the empty church, dark and strangely beautiful in such an ugly area. I jumped when I came across a human standing before me, an elderly woman in a habit. She was clearly blind. "Hello, darling," she said. "Hello. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just looking for somewhere peaceful to think." She fumbled in her pockets and I forgot to pretend to breathe. She pulled out cash and pressed it into my hand. Her skin was almost as cold as mine, but wrinkled and aged. I hated myself for pitying her so deeply, because before I met Bella I would have been envious of growing old. "Here's a donation for you, darling." "It's for widows and orphans," interrupted the strange woman. She tried to clasp the money into my hand but I shook my head. Before realizing she could not see me. "I'm not a widow," I protested. "And I'm far too old to be an orphan. Honey, we're all God's orphans and Christ's motherfucking widows. Take the money." "Why me?" "Because you're a hurt and lost soul if I've ever met one. You might need it if you have to find a way out or whatever bad situation you're in." I stared at her for a moment, wondering how a blind woman could see through me so well. Thank you," I stammered, shocked at my own discomfort and awkwardness. "May God bless you, darling. Don't forget that sometimes anywhere is better than where you are." I escaped quickly, dropping the money in the alms basket on my way out, as I trembled like a human from the encounter. Was it a dream? It couldn't have been. I had not had a dream since Carlisle turned me. Shaken, I strode further down the road, heading along the empty highway to go find some rabbits to feast on to protect my cover story. Then the headlights blinded me. Hey, please help," cried out a female voice. I could not ignore that. I walked further out and saw two young women staring at their busted car in moderate terror. Who could blame them? Were I not what I am, I would be frightened stranded in the middle of the Oregon desert with a broken-down Jeep. "Do you know anything about cars?" I smiled for the first time since I left Bella. "Yeah, I majored in mechanics a while back." One of the girls threw her arms around me in a tight embrace. "Oh, thank goodness. I was so scared we'd have to deal with some creepy guy." Her hair smelled like Bella's cheap Prel shampoo. She refused to switch to another I suggested. Her blood smelled like heaven after 2 days without feeding. My lips began to dry and my throat began to ache. Eyes turning black as this desert night before I remembered myself. "Pop the hood and I'll take a look," I said, gently pushing her away. The succulent smell faded, but not nearly as much as I had hoped. It only took me a few minutes to see what was wrong with the engine and only a few more to patch things up, at least for now. "Tomorrow you ought to take this to a real shop, but it should get you out of town safely," I said. "That was amazing," remarked the blonde. "I wish we could give you something." My head spun and the ground seemed to swirl beneath my feet as I thought of the one thing I wanted. But I hastily clamped my teeth shut and shook my head. "I like helping. Stay safe." The brunette embraced me again and I drew in the scent of Prel and sweet blood once more. I held her a little too long. I didn't do what Carlisle would want and stopped breathing. My lips began to betray me and moved towards her pulsing neck. I closed my eyes and opened my mouth and took several staggering steps back. Good luck, I forced myself to say, and I bolted from the scene to find rabbits as swiftly as I could. I did, but they did not feel like enough to sat me. Not anymore. At dawn, as I stood alone on the balcony of the motel room, gazing down at the flickering neon sign and filthy drained pool, Victoria walked out of the motel room and stood beside me. "You've been out here all night," she remarked slowly, cocking her head. I shrugged. "It's not as if we sleep. What were you occupying yourself with? Amunet and Angelique have some fascinating stories to tell. But I think yours of W.H. ere you were last night may be even more interesting." "Not really. I took a walk through a dead-end town and ate some rabbits." A lie of omission, but not a lie. What did Amunet find out from those friends of hers, anyway? No idea. She tells me even less than she tells you. You have a destiny, remember? Right. Rosalie Hale and her special destiny. It tasted bitter in my mouth despite my unending curiosity. I wish I had a special destiny. Victoria shifted strangely on her feet. Her hand twitched towards me before she blatantly changed her mind. She had the strange mannerisms of someone who had never been loved or befriended and was forced to improvise. I could relate. Amunet insisted that before we met her friends we needed appropriate clothes for the venue she still kept secret. I stood at a designer shop in Portland, trying on this and that. I felt detached from this world and separated from my own soul. Was I willing to sacrifice it just to see this through? Was I willing to lose my family? Was I willing to lose my mate? I brushed my manicured fingertips across a garish pink dress and my face fell. "What's wrong?" asked Victoria. She almost sounded compassionate. I was just thinking about how Alice would love this. I had lived a long life so far. I had learned to get used to sadness. But that did not make it hurt any less. Leaving my family was one of the hardest things I had ever done. And I missed them with a dull ache in my chest that never subsided. She would, wouldn't she? Victoria offered a smile in my direction. I did not return one. I looked up and saw Amunet and Angelique just outside of a dressing room. Amunet kissed Angelique softly before they resumed their intimate conversation. I swallowed and tried to return my attention to the clothing. Maybe I was a hurt and lost soul. Maybe I was a widow without my mate. Maybe I was an orphan without my family. When, garbed in our new outfits, we entered the surprisingly high-end nightclub hidden in the grungiest part of Burnside. The scent of human blood was so strong that my head began to spin. Yet, everyone I could see partying inside was a vampire. "What is this place?" I asked. Angelique winked at me and grabbed a drink out of a vampire's hand. "Wait and see. Act natural, enjoy the party, and the main event will answer your questions." The main event did not sound like anything I wanted to see, much less participate in. But I nodded and watched her take off to the back rooms with Amunet. Victoria turned to me. "Can I buy you a drink?" Reluctantly, I replied, "Lead the way." She took my hand. I knew I should break free of the grasp, but I simply held loosely as we walked up to the crowded neon bar. I took one look and my jaw dropped before I caught myself and hastily closed it. Of course they were not drinking alcohol. How could I be so blind? The bottles and glasses were filled with human blood, and I shuddered to think where they got it. Victoria took one. I declined. "Not thirsty," teased Victoria. I expected such a response and so it did not disturb me. Not for what's on the menu. I leaned against the bar and stared at the dreadful scene around me. Vampires celebrating their evil. We stood in silence as Victoria sipped her drink and moved to the music. She was beautiful, but nothing compared to Bella Swan. I stopped her, knowing I was acting on foolish impulse but unable to stop myself. "What is it?" she asked, almost kindly, but with a biting aftertaste to her words. "Can ask you about James." She froze, eerily still against the wild beat of the music. He rubbed her lips together before nodding. "What do you want to know? How do you go on without him? He made his choice. I made mine. I came to terms with that. You don't miss him." I said I came to terms with it. I didn't say I don't miss him. It feels like something in me died, knowing I left and I may never see her again. I'm attracted to you for one main reason. When I'm with you, that part of me that died comes back to life. I wished, so much in this moment, that I could say the same. But I knew nothing could resurrect that part of me except for kissing Bella again. I felt too free as I danced with Victoria. The music, the blinding flashing lights in a rainbow of reds. It made me forget my troubles, at least for a little while. But suddenly, as Victoria spun against my body, the music stopped and we both parted from each other, standing mute. The stage lit up in a bright yellow of spotlights, and room felt too silent. My skin crawled as a large vampire male walked confidently out onto the stage and grabbed the microphone. Bring out the raffle box. Let's find out who has first bite tonight. Two buff vampires dragged out a struggling, bound human whom looked beyond worse for wear. They shoved the human man to the floor on the stage. I couldn't move. I could not look away no matter how much I knew I should. The host called out a name and a female vampire eagerly tore her way through the crowd, walking up to the stage to the sound of cries of excitement and wild applause. She grasped the human tightly and dragged him to her feet, and pried his neck up to her fangs. She bit down. I tried and failed to close my eyes. He screamed in agony as she drained him of blood and threw his corpse to the floor, laughing as blood dripped from her lips. Applause. Applause. These sick fucks. Who would think that was entertaining? Angelique and Amunet emerged from the back rooms and smoothly wove through the crowd to stand on either side of me and Victoria. I suppressed a shiver. It did not bode well with me. I should have expected it when the nightclub host eagerly shouted into the microphone, and this one goes to a lucky Rosalie Hale. It struck me like a stake to the heart. I almost doubled over but kept my back stiff and straight. The idea of walking onto that stage sickened me to the core. The brutality, the depravity, the barbarism. It all repulsed me. It's a test of your allegiance, impatiently explained Angelique when she saw my expression. With a delicate but forceful touch, she led me up to the stage. 100 red eyes stared at me. I turned. To Angelique as two vampire men as large as Emmett dragged out a human woman in chains. I knew I would find no sympathy, but I regardless whispered, I can't do this. It's inhumane. We don't have to be humane. We are not human. Angelique pushed me forward as the rowdy crowd cheered and laughed. I stared down at the human girl, sobbing on her knees, bound and expecting her death by fangs. Brunette, big brown eyes. Skin almost as pale as her killer's. She looked just like Bella, but helpless. So truly helpless and afraid, and I saw myself and my pain in my last hours as a human within her brown eyes. Afraid and alone but aware of her dark fate. I would never bite her. I would never harm her. I was not like any of the other vampires in this room. Gently pushing the human woman out of the way, I shoved the scarlet-eyed host against the theater wall with as much force as I had in me. Bitch. He spat, blood spraying from his fangs. That's queen bitch to you. I snarled. In a wild, impulsive act one couldn't explain, I tore his arm from his torso as he cried out. I dropped it to the floor and spun to face the stunned crowd. Party's over. Get the fuck out of here before more of you get hurt. A few lingered as the rest swiftly advanced on me. Victoria moved forward, arm out protectively but uselessly against the swarm of angry vampires. I steeled myself, ready to fight or die, but Amunet and Angelique stepped in front of me at the last second. I blinked, stunned. I believe my companion said the party was over. A few retreated, but others continued in their advance until she burst into magnificent light, surrounding her like a magnificent, evil angel. The vampire's pale skin illuminated and shimmered as they all made a break for the doors. Angelique seized my arm and our coup. Artet ran behind the stage and fled into the back alley. I suppose she failed her test, purred Angelique. All I could manage to ask was, why did you save me? Amunet smiled, scarlet eyes glittering with smug withheld knowledge. Because I knew this about you, Rosalie Hale. Never forget that nothing surprises me. I averted my gaze. She touched my shoulder and left me alone with Victoria. My fell. Low Cullen runaway stayed in silence with me for as long as I needed to compose myself. So, do you often throw yourself into a room of angry vampires to protect a single human life, or is this new for you? I always say I will try anything once. Victoria smirked and batted her long doll eyelashes. Anything. Almost anything. Why would you risk your life like that? Because it's what I believe in. And nothing is worth fighting for if it isn't worth dying for. That's actually beautiful. It's just how I feel. I don't know why anymore. I don't know much anymore. I'm just drifting at this point, and I fell silent. I did not know how to explain my madness of late. You're figuring yourself out. I suppose I can't deny that. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to tell you something," said Victoria as she leaned in and pressed her lips vivaciously against mine. My eyes widened in shock, and at the softness and sureness, they began to close before Bella's beautiful face flashed in my mind and I recoiled, shoving Victoria away. No, there was no replacement for my mate and I could not believe I was monstrous enough to try to make one out of Victoria. "I love Bella," I said vehemently, hand twitching to slap either her or myself, whichever one was more at fault here. "You kissed me back," Victoria retorted, but I ignored her and stormed after Amunet and Angelique. Yet despite my moody march away from the scene of the crime, I was not angry. I was relieved. I discovered that, as I drifted, more lost than I ever had been in my life, at least one thing was certain. I loved Bella Swan. Bella. Blank, underscore, blank. After my drunken night, I dreamt of snow falling on cedars and the flashes of fur and gilded eyes in the golden light of daybreak. I woke up on Billy's creaky couch with a groan escaping my chapped, gross lips. I thought I may be dying. Maybe I should have paid more attention to school assemblies and underage drinking public service announcements. Forcing my eyes to face the ruthless, relentless sun, I started the lengthy, nauseating process of sitting up and making an attempt to get my bearings. What did I drink last night? Moonshine. My mouth was dry and tasted like fermented cabbage. My head pounded like a barrel of monkeys fighting over a bucket of firecrackers. To top it off, I was pretty certain if I moved too fast I would hurl on a level rivaling The Exorcist. But still, I forced myself to my aching feet and decided to find Jacob and check on him before getting home as quickly as possible. All I could think about was how Charlie would kill me if he found out. Or worse, send me away from Forks. To Florida, away from my pack, away from where Rosalie would return to me. I had heard him talking about it with my mom, but I always shoved it into the back of my mind and refused to let it resurface. I jumped when my phone rang, and hastily fumbled to find it. I didn't know the number on the screen, but I held my breath and answered it anyway. "Bella. Bella, is that you?" whispered the voice I missed most. My heart seized and my throat constricted. It was Rose and she was alive and she was calling me and, albeit distorted, it was her voice. "Rosalie." I gasped out. Being able to speak to her at long last felt like a bucket of ice water poured over my head and snapping me into an alert state. She replied quietly, "Thank God. I missed you so much. I wanted to talk to you but I wasn't brave enough. Where are you?" "I'll get there as fast as I can." I could not hide my frantic tone if I wanted to. I knew what would happen next the moment the words left my dehydrated lips. Rosalie's soft sigh on the other line spoke volumes, especially since vampires did not need to breathe. "It's too dangerous for you to come here right now. I'm with Amunet and with the Volturi and her and I don't care about the danger. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if you got hurt over me." Before I could argue, Rosalie said, "Bella. There are so many things I want to say to you but I don't know how. I think about you all the time but I never can figure out the words to describe what's in my heart. Try. Please, for me, try. I want to but I'm afraid you'll never look at me the same way again." My own vehemence surprised me as I fiercely insisted, nothing could ever change the W. I look at you or the way I feel about you." Her response was painfully cold and embittered. "Because of love or biology? Are you angry? It's okay to be angry about this whole imprinting thing. I know it's been rough for plenty of people. I don't mind being your imprint. You're my mate, after all. Nothing in this world is going to end this interspecies liaison. But she trailed off and even my wolf instincts were at a loss. It was hard to properly sense her over the telephone. "I'm not angry. I'm lost. Bella, I need to follow this path to its end. You know, in your heart that I'll be back once I figure this out, and then we have all of eternity together." I knew she was sincere, but my nostrils flared all the same. "I think maybe it's a good time for you to find yourself too. Before we're mated for life. Because you are extraordinary, and I'm not sure you can be extraordinary if you're devoted to me with no choice. It's unfair to both of us, but almost entirely you. My head is there's a war in there. I need you to think this through and we can be whole people who love each other instead of just two halves taped together. You're asking me to be rational. I can't be. Not about you. I wish I could make my feelings go away long enough to figure out who I am on my own, but I can't. I can't be rational about you either. I'm not even supposed to be calling you. I stole a phone because I'm weak, so and I never stop thinking about you, even when I sleep, but I need this, and I'll forgive you if I want to be with you until the end of time. Then come home. I can't. Not until I see this through. All my life, my soul sought a thing it could not name. Your destiny. Myself. Who I am. What it all means. If it means anything. Ever since we faced Amunet, I just don't know who the fuck I am anymore. Don't let taste of human blood push you this far. It wasn't the taste of human blood, it was the taste of that thing, that something. That my soul has been looking for, and I need to know where and why. And you had a taste of being special. But you're special without some stupid destiny or anyone telling you that you are. My dad always told me that some people are really good at making their targets feel more important to them than they really are. And you are exactly as important to me as I hope you can feel. I know Amunet is manipulative. The next words came out of my mouth as viciously as a wolf bite. I'm not talking about Amunet. I'm talking about you. She instantly, and probably fairly, flipped from apologetic to enraged. About me. If I was really as important to you as you make me feel, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I love you. I love you as much as the moon loves the sun. As much as death loves the innocent, and as much as any two people have ever loved each other before. But love requires trust, and I need you to trust me for a little while longer. Please. I wanted to rant and rave and take out my anger. I wanted to tell her that if she really loved me, it was not in a way I understood. My human side hated her right now. But my wolf side, it heard something in her voice. And it remembered prom, when I noticed how she danced and kissed and spoke like someone who never truly felt loved and was forced to improvise. My wolf side felt he needed me but was not open enough to acknowledge it. I love you too. Rose, tell me where you are. I'll come alone. I won't tell anyone. I'm worried about you and I miss you so bad it's tearing me apart. Okay. To my great shock, she relented, seemingly sans any remaining reservations. I'm in California right now but we move every few nights. I need to look up. The sudden silence made my street. Omic twist and my heart leap into my throat. I pressed my phone so hard to my ear that it hurt my cheekbone. Rosalie. Talk to me. Someone's coming. I'll contact you next time I get a chance. Rose. But all she did was whisper a few words derived from the Christian confession of sin. For what I have done and for what I have failed to do, I am so sorry. Rose. Click. End of call. I see. Old not breathe until I involuntarily release a wordless cry of rage so strong that I need to take deep breaths when it at last ends. I did not think anything could make me feel worse than my hangover. But Rosalie proved that supposition wrong. Everything hurt, both physically and emotionally, as I started gathering my belongings that were currently scattered about Jacob's house. Nervous energy lashed with dehydrated fatigue as I packed up. I wanted to run to my Imprint's rescue yet could not. My body shook and head spiraled with the need to run somewhere, anywhere, just run and run. My mind was lost in agonizing thoughts of Rosalie and the fuzziness of a killer headache as I dragged myself around. But I snapped to attention when I heard the heavy creak of wheels on old wood behind me. Slowly, I turned around to see the man I only recently discovered was my father. Billy took a slow breath and examined me. It felt like he could see into my soul. I squirmed uncomfortably until he spoke. There is a story from our tribe I think you need to hear. A boy sees a very dangerous and venomous snake in his village. He takes a stick, but rather than kill the snake, guides it away into the forest. He follows the snake for many days and many miles. He even helps keep the snake fed and safe. Finally, they are out in the great desert. The snake becomes hungry and bites the boy. As the boy lies there dying, the snake becomes curious and asks why the boy followed him like a fool. The boy replies, "Did I follow you, or did I lead you away from the people I love?" I frowned. He was as difficult to understand as Charlie. But in a different way. "That's a long way to go just to die," I said. Billy shrugged. I felt a pang of guilt. "Thank you for the story. And for noticing what's going on with me. I'm just doing my job. I'm not a stranger to grief." Grief. It was a word I had been hiding from for far too long. It was different from heartache or homesickness. Heavier than guilt and more painful than panic. There were people I missed when they were gone. But there were also people I was so tangled up in that they cut off a piece of me when they left. Rosalie Hale was the latter. I awkwardly waved to Billy, strung my bag over my shoulder and headed to the front door. Even in my addled and emotional state, the moment I opened the front door, I felt strongly as if I had stepped into something very intimate. Jacob and Leah were sitting close together, talking more quietly than I ever had heard my half-brother talk to anyone before. They moved apart from each other when I stepped onto the porch into the unforgiving sunlight. I wondered why Leah blushed. We read each other's minds on the regular and I had no indication that she was keeping a secret. My hungover brain certainly could not process it. But I was uncomfortable nonetheless. Why is it so daytime? I groaned, breaking the tense silence. I failed science last year. I'm the wrong person to ask, joked Jacob. Maybe the sun just hates you. It would explain why you're so pale. I managed a weak but genuine chuckle in the few seconds of happiness I felt before my stomach sank again as I remembered Rosalie. Leah laughed and hit his shoulder. Something about it sunk my heart into my stomach. I couldn't help but blurt out, "Rosalie called me." Their heads snapped up to face me with wide eyes. I could not blame them for their reaction. "What did she say?" asked Leah, sounding much more sympathetic than I had heard her be to anyone in a long time. I sighed, both appreciating it and hating it simultaneously. "Nothing I haven't heard before. I don't think she can say much with those awful leeches around," I lied, immediately realizing that I had yet to truly process the conversation at all. Maybe I didn't want to. With a soft sigh and a shuffle of my feet, I added, "I should get home." Leah sat up straight with her shoulders rolled back, her expression shifting from sweet to steely in less than a split second. Her jaw jutted as she stared me down and said forcefully, "It's a 3-day weekend. You can't just lie in your bed and wallow. Jacob and I won't allow it." Sam said something about wanting a camping trip, Jacob added, shooting Leah a smile that was different than his usual, but I did not currently have the capacity to investigate. I stared at my closest friends in disbelief. Hiking was one thing. Sleeping in the woods for a weekend was another entirely. I was raised as an indoor kid. I had always preferred books to bikes and my soft bed to the hard cold ground. When I was 12, I went to sleepaway camp for the Girl Scouts. After a few mosquito bites and a cold walk to the bathroom, I called my mom crying and she came to pick me up and take me home to bookshelves and a bubble bath. Jake grinned. Good. We'd take Bella out, away from civilization, and detox her of vamps. Me camping, I did not want to seem like a weak alpha, but after Rosalie left me in this state, that ship had sailed. Jacob and Leah exchanged a swift glance and a subtle nod. "All right, it's decided then," declared Jacob, clearly noticing my unbidden unease and anxiety. "Come on," laughed Leah before teasing. "Some alpha you are if you can't handle the woods for a night." I set my hands on my hips. "The real question is if the woods can handle me." Jacob snorted and Leah buried her face in her hands. But I had no regrets. That afternoon, we all loaded in my truck and Sam's with equipment as foreign to me as alien technology. Charlie had been so enthusiastic to agree when I asked him if I could go camping with my friends. I supposed he was probably sick of seeing me moping around the house. Upon arrival and unpacking, it surprised me how much being out in the forest with my pack made me feel better. Things smelled different, sounded different, felt different, and despite the constant sound of wind, rain and loud pack of werewolves, it was quiet. Or maybe my mind was just quiet. Whatever the science or magic was. I was smiling and laughing and setting up a campsite with my pack, and I was, for the first time, able to compartmentalize my agony over Rosalie for a little while. Even Sam and I were not fighting. And Leah was not sulking in the slightest. Sam was the one who came over and showed me how to properly set up a tent, and didn't make it into a dick measuring contest. Brian Jared finished setting up the fire and at last, our camp is together. Sam kicks open one of the colors backed with food and alcohol. "So, who's shacking up with who? The alpha can fly solo, if she wants." I nodded, unsure what to say. This was pretty far from my element, so I let my pack lead the way. "I'll take one for the team and share with Leah," said Jacob. Embry clapped his shoulder. "Thanks man, I'd rather die." I opened my mouth to intervene. Leah deserved respect and the day would never come when I did not stand up for it. But she gave me a wordless glance that stopped me. I knit my brow and nodded at her, making a mental note to talk to my only fellow female wolf later. We grabbed food and drinks and settled around the fire. I unscrewed the lid of bottom shelf rum and Leah gently nudged my ribs with her elbow. Upon realizing what she meant, I raised my drink, and so did everyone else. "What should we drink to, Miss Alpha?" teased Embry. I shrugged and smiled. "Let's drink to and see where it goes." No one disagreed with that. We told stupid stories and laughed and dirty jokes and forgot our troubles until the fire burned low and it was time to turn in and get some sleep. The forest was calming, as was the soft light of the moon pouring gently into my tent. But I was seeing stars and missing Rosalie and worrying about a vampire war and unable to sleep a wink. I no longer knew if I wanted to drown myself in love, vodka or the sea. What I needed was the kind of people who knew how to slap me back to my senses. Therefore, I made my way out of my tent struggling to get to my knees and then feet. With a good deal of crawling on my elbows and pauses for deep breaths to calm the dizziness and nausea. My attuned wolf eyes even in human form made it easy to find Jacob and Leah's tent. I moved to open it and as I pulled the zipper up, lost my balance and came crashing inside, landing sloppily on top of two screaming and naked bodies. I cried out, "Oh my God." My brother leapt up as Leah covered herself with the two unzipped sleeping bags. My hands shot up over my eyes. "What the hell?" he demanded. All I could manage was to croak out, "Pants, Jake, pants." He scrambled for his clothes while muttering a fairly impressive string of angry expletives. Leah attempted to stammer an explanation but none of it made sense. And me, I had never before been more mortified in my entire life. Once Jacob was dressed, he seized my wrist and dragged me from the tent. "What was that?" His whisper somehow seemed both louder and fiercer than a shout. "I couldn't sleep." Pause. "I guess you couldn't either." "Lower your voice. You already made enough noise. Do you want the whole pack to find out about me and Leah? What's the problem with them finding out? Would it embarrass you to be with the girl your buddies all make fun of for having feelings?" "No, you know me better than that. It's about this whole imprinting thing. Leah and I figure if nobody knows it's less complicated or whatever." He sighed and rubbed his face. A little embarrassed by my unfair assumption, I softly asked, "Is that why you're worried about us all imprinting?" "Because of Leah." Jacob frowned. "I hate imprinting for a lot of good reasons. But, yeah, she's a big one of them." "How did you two happen?" I asked, trying my best to change the subject from one that obviously pained him. "You're not always around. You know, Sam pretty much takes over the group when you're not here. I end up on the outs of the pack. Seems like more and more since all this Amunet stuff. I sue. Pete Port you and I'm not afraid to tell Sam off. Leah's on the outs too. We both hate imprinting and it turns out she's okay. More than okay, I guess." I often thought about Leah's situation with Sam and Emily. Or the comments Jacob made about wanting to choose who we love. I was fortunate in the fact that I had never been in love with anyone before Rosalie. Maybe I did understand, or maybe I did not. But I knew that in Rosalie's absence I had more than once wished that imprinting never existed. "Wanna throw rocks at the stream?" I asked. He faintly smiled at me and nodded. In the early evening on a Friday night, Alice and I sat on my sofa watching an old black and white vampire film. She had protested, telling me that it was unhealthy when I missed Rosalie, but I won out in the end. My coping mechanism was cracking jokes and forcing smiles. It wasn't my best, but I told Alice, it's a little harder to take vampire movies seriously when they're not much like the real thing. I mean, half of the plot is based around them needing to be invited in. Alice laughed. "Well, we do prefer to be invited in. It's more polite." I shot a halfway genuine smile at my friend. "She always did make hard times easier. They're not too immortal either," I continued. Alice looked a little puzzled by that one and so I elaborated. "Well, they say they're immortal and all but if they go to a Home Depot garden sale and trip they're dead. Or going poof if they go out in sunlight. So you're immortal, Mr. Nosferatu. Try being immortal at brunch." We both laughed. It was real for me, and hopefully real for her too. Never deterred by sadness, she always knew exactly what to say with her sweet and bubbly voice. Alice chirped, "I would totally like to turn into a bat though. It would be so fun." I shook my head. "You wouldn't be a bat. You'd be like a hummingbird." Alice laughed. Good point. After that, we watched in a relaxed silence. That was a cool thing about having a real best friend for the first time. We could just shut up and enjoy the peace and quiet without it ever being uncomfortable. But suddenly, Alice asked, "Did you ever figure out what was in that box in La Push?" My lips contorted into a frown. It was grave and taut, but lately hurt less on my face than a smile. No. I stopped thinking about it after I lost Rosalie. Leah took pictures of it, but even old Quill doesn't know what most of the writing on it says. And the cold ones in their legends don't seem related to the cave paintings. Do you have the pictures? I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through my text chain with Leah until I found them. After I handed her my phone, Alice scrunched up her face and examined them all closely. Any thoughts? No, there doesn't seem to be a way to open it either. If you can get it to the surface, you should bring it to Carlisle. Can you send me the pictures so I can show him? I could try. It could help us. Things in the vampire world are looking ominous at the moment. How ominous? A pang of regret hit me. I had vowed to help, vowed to stop Amunet, but all I had done was succumb to misery and heartbreak over my imprint. Alice's small frown spoke more than words ever could. It had been almost a month since losing Rosalie, and I was so far below rock bottom that I was limbo dancing with the devil in hell. But I had one thing to keep my mind occupied: destroying the evil creature who took her from me. So, at the moment, I was wading into the ocean with Jacob, Leah and Sam while holding a very hefty crowbar. We swam out to the cave, diving and surfacing and repeating until we at last reached the resting place of the locked box. The three of us got to work. Freeing it from the rocks was even difficult with our enhanced strength. I took the crowbar to the chains as Sam grabbed me by the waist to add more strength and leverage. Jake dove with the bolt cutters and he and Leah combined their power as well. The strain was unimaginable, but at last, we managed to break the box from its sunken prison. It was shockingly light when I picked it up and desperately swam to the surface, vision blurred due to desperation for oxygen. The three F's silently congratulated each other with weak gestures and expressions as we caught our labored breath. Finally, the box tucked under Jacob's shoulder, we slowly made our way back to shore. The GNTLE waves 1,000 times as heavy to push aside on our way. I remained in my hands and knees in the murky, muddy sand, head bowed and spinning, until I steadied myself and arose onto my feet. We needed no words as Jacob handed me the box. I gave a nod of thanks, and then took off to my truck, setting the box gently in the passenger seat, and began the long drive to the Cullens' house. The moment I hopped out of my truck, Emmett shouted out, "Van Belsing," and wrapped me in a huge bear hug that a human probably could neither endure nor survive. I had to admit I did not expect such a warm welcome. For over a month, I had been afraid to interact with any Cullen but Alice, and she had simply forced her way through any walls I tried to build between us. It was like them to always be kind, but I felt beyond undeserving. I could not stop Rosalie from leaving them, and I had not rescued her. I squirmed at the warm welcome I received, and it only became worse once I entered and Esme began to fret over me like the proper kind of mother I supposed I never really had. "You're soaking. Would you like a towel?" "I'm fine, thank you," she continued without any reservation. "Are you hungry?" No. And I really don't want to impose." I averted my eyes as my stomach did backflips. "You're still family," she said warmly. I struggled to find the right words to respond, but thankfully, Esme caught on quickly to my discomfort. She simply squeezed my shoulder and led me to Carlisle's office. He, Alice, Jasper, Edward and Tanya were all waiting inside, holding a hushed and clearly severe conversation until they noticed me. We did not char much even with Alice present as I handed the box to Carlisle. The tension was agonizing and palpable as we all waited for his intense and meticulous examination to conclude. At long last, he looked up at us. "I've never seen anything like this, I'm afraid to say," concluded Carlisle. "But I can't say it's not to do with Amunet," Emmett suggested. "The shifters are vampire slayers. Maybe it's a weapon." Tanya frowned. "If it was one, it couldn't have worked if she's still around." "We don't even know who buried it," said Edward. "It could have been anyone." Esme lifted her eyes from the box to contribute with, "It is pre-colonial, but I can't determine exactly when it was made." Alice asked Carlisle, "Do you know when Amunet first visited the Americas?" "It can't have been before the 1500s, right?" It very much could have been, unfortunately. The only people who know enough about her past would never share it, if there are any left. Carlyle turned to me, his golden gaze uncannily intense. If your tribe permits it, I would like to take this to Italy. Italy. The home of not only the Volturi and their collected knowledge, but also their archives. If there is any way to open the box and discover what it holds, it will be in Volterra. Esme grabbed his shoulder. You're not going there alone. Tanya and I will go too. Someone has to stay here for Rosalie, said Emmett fiercely. Alice squeezed my arm. Jazz and I will stay too. And so it was. Whenever I cried, had a bad day, struggled with rough times, my mother would hold me and tell me that tomorrow would be kinder. It was a beautiful thing to say, and once upon a time comforted me. But as I got older, I could not help but realize how rarely that saying was true. Lately, it seemed as if every day was crueler than the last. At another blurry and pointless day of school, or perhaps of life in general, I entered the cafeteria to find, as usual, Alec waiting for me at our table with a tray of food she would not eat. Usually, we talked about nothing. She was the only person who could make me laugh lately. But I cut right to the chase as soon as I sat down. Any word from Carlyle? Only that they made it safely to Volterra. It'll probably be at least a couple of days before they can call again. The Volturi are equal parts strict and secretive. Any visions of Rosé? I was pretty sure she, as usual, would not give any answer about the future unless it was life or death, but upon occasion, her expression gave her away. Alice remained silent. At first my heart did a backflip of panic, but she smiled with a small sparkle in her golden eyes. Then she shook her head. Nothing, really. The solemn sadness returned as quickly as if it were never gone. I sighed deeply. The not knowing. It's if something happened to her, I would never love again. Because for me, it has to be real love. And there isn't any real love with anyone but Rosalie. How do you define real love? Asked Alice quietly. I somehow did not even think, the words flying so quickly from my lips that I stuttered and stumbled through the consonants and vowels. Real love is when you can't exist without someone, I hastily said. When you'd rather die than be apart. That when you're together the whole world goes dark and all that matters is the person standing in front of you. Rose wouldn't have left if she felt that for me. But I want her back anyway. I need her with me again and I hope she will be, because even if she doesn't feel that way for me I feel that way for her. And I can't change that even if I wanted to. Alice cocked her head to the side. Do you want to? I inhaled deeply as I pretended to think about it, which gave me the ability to swallow my strong emotions before speaking. I don't think so, I said, but honestly I have no idea. I just have to wait. And wait I did, even when each tick of the second hand pulsed like an aching bruise. Up until the day I slipped up on my perfect albeit depressed, confused and secretly canine daughter act. It was hard for me to cause any pain to those I loved, but fortunately all of the people I love. Ed knew the skinny on my role in a vampire war, wolfish tendencies and heartbreaking interspecies liaison. Except for one, Charlie. And I had managed to convince him I was fine and talk him out of sending me to a shrink month-long nature retreat or, the worst, Florida to live with my mother. But I had zero sleep, up worrying about no news from Carlyle or Rosalie and hating myself for ignoring calls and texts from La Push. I thought I would make it through the day all right, but I drifted off in English class watching a film adaptation of Oscar Wilde's Salome. Miss Swan woke me from my uneasy slumber. The teacher slammed his hand onto my desk and I jolted awake. Miss Swan, would you care to enlighten us with your opinion? I think Salome is a victim, even though you're using her as an example of a villain in your curriculum about villains and the lengths they go to for their desires versus heroes and their tragic sacrifices. She's not Lady Macbeth, nothing like it, no matter how much you force us to do assignments comparing and contrasting them. I think maybe you should grade student papers based on their writing structure and quality of the argument, instead of giving out Ds B. Because you disagree with the thesis that Salome is just as much a victim of circumstance as John the Baptist. The class was stunned into uncomfortable silence, except for Jessica, who snorts and bursts into a fit of giggles. She is undeterred by my mortified expression and rapidly beating heart, as well as how red our instructor's face is as she. The English teacher cleared his throat and composed himself. A fair opinion. But being so adamant and to disrespectfully sleep in class won't help you support that point in this week's essay. Perhaps detention after school will give you some time to reflect on the reading and film. And Miss Stanley, you may join her for being disruptive, not to mention texting during the whole film. I was shocked and sweating, thrown into a whirlwind of utterly nauseating panic. Not once in my life had I gotten a detention. I was so dedicated to being well behaved that I had never even jaywalked or illegally downloaded music. Jessica, in stark contrast to my reaction, exclaimed shrilly. I wasn't texting. No one just looks at their crotch and smiles, Miss Stanley. Mike Newton whispered to his bonehead buddy, you do if you've got what I'm packing. I exhaled deeply and bowed my head. Charlie was most certainly not going to be happy. My head hurt like hell as I sat in agonizing silence during my detention with Jessica. I was trying to use my Tim.E to figure out a solid argument to justify my detention, or at least an excuse. I knew it would be more ammunition for my parents to try to interfere with my life here in Forks. They just wanted to help, but I could not explain myself. Or the truth of Forks, without them putting me in a padded cell. They already wanted to put me in a nut house, telling them about imprinting, a vampire war, and, oh right. Me being the leader of a pack of werewolves certainly could not help. Sadly, despite an hour of thinking as Jessica texted under her skirt and popped her bubblegum, I did not have the faintest clue of how to save myself from Charlie's dismay. I dredged my way to the parking lot, feeling sick to my stomach. But when a familiar friend pranced over to me, I experienced a little bit of relief. Alice pulled me into one of her signature strong hugs, and once she released me, she touched my face and frowned. It's times like this I wish I could see your future. I don't mind it, I admitted. I'm pretty sure if most people knew their future they'd never get out of bed in the morning. Me included. Alice nodded. I have been keeping a third eye on Charlie. Call me when you can, okay. That boded with me so poorly that I could not manage to respond. I was expecting a nightmare at home. Yet, Charlie did not get home until late. I arrived home and I was alone. At first, it was massively relieving. But then I realized that the anxiety only built and built as I waited. That night, I sat down to another bleak and silent dinner with Charlie, and he slammed his hand down on the kitchen table. It was pain, not anger, that drove his outburst. Anyone could see that, and anyone knew that somehow that hurt more. That's it, Bella. I'm sending you back to your mother in Florida. My heart dropped into my stomach. This was the worst thing I could imagine, and I could imagine a lot after what I had faced recently. I certainly could not leave my pack, or the Cullens, or this world of magic tea. Hat gave me more of a reason to live than anything ever had. Why? Dad, I can't leave. I know heartbreak hurts. But this is too far. Forks is always going to remind you of Rosalie. When you were spending time with your friends in La Push, I thought maybe you'd be okay, but you don't even visit them anymore. You've always been a straight A student, but the school called today to talk about your grades getting too low. In detention, you've never gotten so much as a stern talking to from a teacher in your life. Bella, you know I love having you here, but it's too much. I'm worried about you. This isn't healthy. You need to move on from Rosalie, and I think that means you need a fresh start. Please, I promise I can move on here. You can't do this to me. The fierce tears began to stream from my eyes. I don't want to. It's made me so happy having you here, but I love you, and I can't do something that's hurting you just so I can keep you around. Your mom and I have been talking with this thing with Billy and now Rosalie. This isn't about a tragic backstory. It's about vampires and witches and werewolves, oh my, but I realized I could not tell him that. I preferred Florida over a padded cell in an institution. I'm doing my best here, kid. I knew that. Charlie was a good dad. A great one. And hurting him by keeping these secrets was a constant dark cloud looming over me. He was a good dad. And so I was certain I could make him see my perspective without revealing the world of magic and mystique hiding amongst the evergreens. But the more I fought with Charlie, the more determined he was. He had already made plans with my mom without telling me, which left me so infuriated that I struggled desperately to not shift into a wolf against my will. The plane tickets were purchased. My mom was in the process of enrolling me in a Floridian school. I fought harder than I had since battling Amunet, but I lost. I sobbed in my room like a pathetic fool of a woman for hours. Before I finally made up my mind about what had to be done. I did not want to do it. I never had been so selfish in my life, never done something that would hurt the people I cared about. But the decisions made by Charlie, my mom, Rosalie and Amunet gave me no choice. I could either be a victim or rise up. And I was so weary of being the victim, a weakling despite the alpha wolf within. Without love, I was nothing. As a human, I was helpless and frustrated and pained. So I left a note, leaving out a great deal of information about mythical creatures and vampire civil wars, and left it for Charlie. My stomach churned and my heart sank as I acknowledged it would hurt him, and I hated myself for that. He didn't deserve me leaving. Neither did Billy or my mom or the Cullens or my wolf pack. Yet, I forced myself to suppress compassion, sloppily stitched up my bleeding heart, and concluded that I had to let people hate me for this choice, since I knew it was right for me and hopefully Rosalie. I headed into the backyard. I took a deep breath. I wiped away my tears. I phased out of my human form. And I ran on my 4 legs until Bella Swan faded away and only the beast remained. Blank, underscore, blank. Rosalie. Blank, underscore, blank. My favorite word had always been paradise. Ever since I learned it as a young girl, I liked how it rolled off of my tongue. The whisper of longing as my lips closed on the P and opened to breathe a sweet sigh mere milliseconds later. I knew it was what I wanted, but I never quite felt it was what I had, or perhaps ever would have. I loved being human, and my time as a human was perfectly fine and lovely up until the grisly end. I missed being human. Sometimes I thought it was paradise, and I had to die and be reborn to see just what I had once upon a time. But at the same time I remembered my childhood as nothing but a sense of wistful longing, homesick for somewhere I had never before been. That place was paradise. And I had never found it until I met Bella Swan. As I sat anxiously in another hotel room in another city where Amunet sought old friends and built her army, I was alone. And I knew only one thing for certain. I needed to call Bella. Being away from her, not hearing her voice, it was killing me. And so, since Victoria was out hunting and I figured she owed me for ing to kiss me when she knew I had a mate I loved, I stole her phone from her purse and dialed Bella's number. Each ring took longer than the past countless decades of my immortal life. But, finally, she answered. And I had only one chance to try to explain myself. Angelique returned first and alone, a few hours before dawn. It felt odd being alone with her. Of all of the crew I now somehow ran with, I knew her the least. Amunet was too possessive, too protective. She stared at me more intently than she ever had with eyes as bright and as red as rubies. For a moment, I thought perhaps she could see or smell the guilt on me. You look so sad. To my surprise, the usually utterly aloof woman sat down beside me. And it isn't hard to tell that your sadness is over romance. Isn't it always? I frowned softly and averted my eyes. No romance ever lacked obstacles or pain. Angelique touched my hand. If your wolf truly loves you, she can wait. I waited centuries for Amunet. Rage tore through me like a wildfire. I was able to contain most of it, but not enough to stop myself from snarling. Her name is Bella Swan. She's not my pet. She's her own, remarkable person. Right, of course. Angelique did not bother to hide the disdain in her voice, but I let it slide just this once in the spirit of getting to know her. If your love is meant to be, it will happen. I learned that from my mate. I see your strength as Amunet does. Look at Victoria. She is arrogant, ambitious and hungry, which is useful, but she tries to push herself onto what she wants. How did you last so long without your mate? Her expression fell, her piercing gaze drifting away from me and landing on the ugly wall. After a brief moment, she shrugged and hemmed in an obvious attempt to reclaim her lofty air. It wasn't easy. Lonely, I would imagine. Yes. Silence. We met while I was bathing in the River Seine, back when I had rosy skin and Paris was just a small Roman town. She handed me my clothes when I got out of the water. And was gone so quickly after flirting with me for about 30 seconds, which I imagine you know can be enough to fall madly in love with someone forever. She was at my window 2 nights later. I thought she was remarkable, of course, but I was betrothed and happy in my life. I didn't wish to be a vampire, so she courted me and waited months for me to be ready to choose her. After she turned me, she waited by my bedside, watching me. And during the times I was conscious, I wondered why. I must have asked her because I recall her telling me that she had waited thousands of years to find me. And she could wait for me as long as she had to. How could I not wait for her after that? It reminded me a little of Alice and Jasper. I always thought their love was beautiful. The rest of my family said it made them certain soulmates existed. I, however, never believed that until Bella. I know how you feel and I would always do the same for Bella. But what if we never do see each other again? I made this decision to try to do the right thing for both myself and my mate, but I'm starting to think that I'm selfish and a coward and that she'll see that. Or worse, one of us will die in the war Amunet and Arrow are starting. I cannot pretend to be an expert of love, life, death or the future. But if it was the right thing for you to leave, you both will have your happy ending. And if it was the wrong thing, well, that's how I held on. I knew that the wrong committed against my mate would be righted one day if I could be patient. You think stopping Amunet's carnage was a wrong? Angelique shot to her feet and hissed, but I stayed still and locked eyes with her. Do you not think it was a wrong? After these weeks, I am starting to truly see her for who she is. But I also have seen what she can do when she attacked my family. There was good reason for what happened to her. Maybe they got it wrong, I don't know, but I trust Carlyle and I trust that he only would have helped the Volturi if they were doing what they were certain were right. The evidence. Her confessors were tortured, her accusers were her political rivals, and her true self was obscured by legend before any of the Volturi were even born. Who could divine myth from fact? She shared power until they decided they needed to shut her up. They were and are too contented hiding in the shadows. Or you. No. The words escaped my lips before I could think about them. But I did not bother to correct myself or figure out those feelings. I was too agitated by Angelique ignoring Amunet's evil deeds. She hurt people I love. She's killing vampires when she says that she wants vampires to rule the world. Is it murder to kill those who have destroyed you? Or is it justice? I still hated Amunet. I still trusted Carlyle. But I could not defend myself against her without being a hypocrite. Nor did I have time to come up with a response before the door clicked open and I strode a rejected Victoria and a luminous Amunet. Daring to look directly at Amunet, albeit not in the eyes, I sharply stated, I won't apologize for what I did at that club. Amunet laughed. It was beautiful, but twisted. Enough so that it could send a shiver down a vampire's spine. You should not apologize. She smiled. I found it truly remarkable and invigorating, which a woman as ancient as I can rarely ever say. I have seen things you would not believe, yet I almost could not believe what I saw tonight. I barely suppressed a scoff. Is that why I have a special destiny? No, it's not why you have a special destiny. But it is one reason why you are special. You seem really certain about my future. That is because I am. I dared at last to ask my burning question. How does it work, anyway? How is it so much more foolproof than my sister, seeing patterns instead of clear visions? A secret gleam in her ruby eyes as though she was about to unveil the secrets of Aladdin's cave. Life has a melody, Rosalie, said Amunet. A rhythm of notes that define all creation when played in harmony with God's plan. I'm not sure I get it. You are a very intelligent and remarkably intuitive woman. But I feel it would be not unlike trying to explain particle physics to a particle. Despite her attempt to sugarcoat the statement, I could not help but be offended. Yet, I shook it fairly easily since I was pretty certain it was true. I could not imagine or understand what it would be like to have been born before the construction of the Great Pyramids and watch the rise and fall of every empire, and to be here today, illuminated by neon lights and blasted with the sound of EDM music. But none of that excused her callousness, hatred, and violence. Just her arrogance. I had no more to say. And neither did anyone else. There was no sound but the desert wind until Amunet bumped against the dresser. She winced and brushed her hand against her side. Winced. Her camisole lifted and I only for a brief flicker of a moment thought I saw a healing scar on her allegedly impenetrable skin. But before I could get a closer look, she hastily pulled down the hem of her shirt. Too hastily. Are you all right? I tentatively asked. Of course. Physically, I am indestructible, mentally I am at last free, and emotionally I am once more whole after being reunited with my Angelique. You needn't ever worry about me. Despite wisely keeping my mouth shut, I very much disagreed with that statement. After a night watching grainy sitcom reruns and thinking of nothing but how true a ND justified Bella's anger at me on the phone was, I looked up and out of the window to see a cloudy, gray, sunless sky. A beautiful morning for a vampire. I stretched my legs around the hall few long minutes before returning the room to see Victoria styling her hair in front of the smudged and scratched mirror. She glanced up at me and commented, "Are we actually unattended? That isn't like Amunet and Angelique. I think they're, as Emmett calls it, hitting the skins." As Victoria snickered, I faintly smiled as I thought about my favorite brother. I did not just miss Bella, although my heart ached for her. But I also missed my family, and even Forks for that matter. Hitting the skins, knocking boots, churning the butter, jumping bones, testing the mattress, boinking, doing the horizontal monster mash. That euphemism was the clear winner. We both burst into reckless laughter. Laughing felt good until it felt dreadful. It was an insult to the loved ones I abandoned to let myself feel any joy on my journey. "You want to go shopping?" asked Victoria. Without a moment's thought, I agreed. An excursion into the real world was something I desperately needed. Once at the run-down rural mall, the first thing I bought with the sparse remaining cash I had on me was a burner phone. As Victoria examined pretty electronic, I stepped outside of the Best Buy and tore open the lining of my purse. I fit the phone inside and concealed it with the rest of the messy but ordinary and unassuming contents. I could finally relax once I draped it back over my shoulder and Victoria casually walked out to join me. We began our rounds of the mall, hitting up every store whether the merchandise interests us or not. I was examining a rather ugly shirt when Victoria touched my arm. It was clear she did not often do something like that. A gentle, filial gesture. She said suddenly, "I'm not the kind of person who apologizes, but I'm sorry for kissing you last night." It was stupid. It really was. I could not help but icily reply. Victoria bitterly pursed her lips, but gave me a forced and somewhat pained nod. Losing a mate is the worst thing that a vampire can ever feel. And I like spending time with you, and I think that and the craziness got me confused. I'm really hurting even if I can't remember how to show any emotions but anger, but I don't know who I'm angry at. Him, for making such a stupid choice. The wolf girl who killed him. Amunet for causing it all. Or myself for being too much of a coward to stop him from making that mistake. I want revenge, but against who or what? It's always in my head, but when I'm with you, I don't feel that way as much as usual. I can't imagine how hard grief is. Grief is complicated. I never know what I'm doing without James. I don't even remember why I do the things I've always done. I've never loved anyone but him, and I don't think I will ever love again. But you know that you're beautiful and I like teasing you and spending time with you. You are describing a friend. Have you never had one? I felt uncomfortable asking but could not help it. Victoria snorted and rolled her ruby eyes. A nomadic murder whose friends and family died centuries ago can't take the risks of getting attached. Oh, it's not like you have any outside of your family. No, I reluctantly admitted. I suppose I don't. I am not very good at friends. Neither am I. Victoria shrugged. Maybe we could give it a shot with each other. Immortality is rather pointless if you never try anything new. I considered it for a moment, flipping through a quite ravishing sundress to buy myself a little time. At last I concluded that I could use an ally. Maybe a friend, but at least someone I could count on in my current sea of uncertainty. Victoria pursed her lips as I turned to face her. As long as you never make a pass at me again, I suppose I could see us being friends. She did not smile or react in the usual way one would, but she did seem pleased. I could see us being friends too. Then I suppose we are friends. I offered my best attempt at a smile. It was weak and reserved, but genuine. Victoria raised her eyebrows and nodded. I've never wanted friends before. Who does with a power like mine? Self-preservation is much more difficult when other people become involved. After all, my gift forces me to betray people to save myself. I don't have a choice. Suddenly, a great deal made sense to me. I had been unaware of her gift this entire time, but it made sense why she would be reluctant to discuss it. It also explained why she and Laurent let James die, no matter how much it pained her. Carlyle told me something months ago that I just remembered. In old noir films they say cherchez la femme look f. Or the woman, since the wife or lover was often a man's killer. But after talking to Carlyle it became pretty clear that it didn't have to be murder, our lovers are our weakest points. Victoria had her fangs and I had to steel myself to stop from stepping back. She looked seconds from ripping my throat out before she chose to use her words instead, albeit snapping and snarling them. James. Why? Or talking about me being as responsible for his death as his killer, your mate. Casually, I held up a hand. I am not saying you're responsible. It could have been the other way around and I'd say the same thing. It's just it makes sense that with your gift you wouldn't want people close to you. They become your weak points. He still is yours, in many ways, like you risking me killing you by stealing that kiss. You wouldn't have killed me, scoffed Victoria. I shrugged loftily. I may have. Victoria rolled her eyes. I'm not really sure why I even like you in the first place. You are extremely hot, but I don't get why I would ever care about a bitch like you in a non-sexual way. I did not have to think about my reply. Probably because I tolerate you when no one else does, and I don't want anything from you. Not to mention we're both screwed in the same way at the moment. Victoria shrugged one shoulder, then, at last, nodded. We did not smile or soften our gazes, but the animosity faded more quickly than I thought possible. I am glad to be your friend, said Victoria, her words slow, strangled and unfamiliar on her tongue. Eager to end the uncomfortable conversation, we resumed our window shopping. After a few minutes of passing shops we lacked any desire to investigate. An upscale jewelry store drew our attention just long enough for my eyes to land on the engagement rings. I did not know how long I stared at them, but I knew it was too long. With a shake of my head, I turned away from them, but also turned my face right into the startling sight of a black platinum credit card clutched in long red nails. Victoria poked my back. Get one, she rather regally commanded. I pursed my lips and shook my head, both to decline Victoria's request and erase my fantasies of marrying Bella so soon from my head like an Etche sketch. I don't think she would ever say yes. In truth, she would, but it would not be based on her actual feelings or a clear mind. It killed me to think of imposing that on her so early in our relationship. I had been alive for nearly a century, Bella was still young. As much as I wanted to return to her and get down on one knee, I had to I'd off my naturally self-centered nature to think of what would be fair for her. She can't ever say yes if you never ask. The only thing stopping you is you. Bella Swan is extraordinary. But her wolf side is telling her to spend her life dedicated to me. To me. How much will she have to give up to be dedicated to serving a vampire? I want her to be able to be extraordinary. And maybe she can't be her own person with me there. Nobody is really their own person. We're all made of a bunch of pieces of people we've known. Do you also have my lucky number of the day? Victoria laughed briefly, but, unfortunately, was not at all deterred by my sarcasm. It can't hurt to look, can it? It could. It would. But when my gaze caught a ring again, my gut pulled me to the shop despite the best efforts from my body and brain to stop me. I left with a diamond ring in a soft crimson velvet box and bits and pieces of a proposal speech running through my head amongst the rest of the madness. I both dreaded and desperately craved being with Bella again. And I felt the same about getting down on one knee. But I still held the ring box tightly and constantly, as if it could float away and vanish. A little distance cleared my head enough to accompany Victoria on an errand for Amunet the next day. While I was dripping with rain and soaked with sorrow and confusion, she found the information she sought. She considered it quick, simple and clean and therefore went to attend to business she withheld from myself and Victoria. All we had to do was walk in the shade wearing hoodies and knock on a few apartment doors to find vampire with a special gift. Or so we thought until we found the right door eerily ajar. As soon as we stepped inside, we smelled the unmistakable stench of the death of the undead. We had sought a vampire, and found the corpse of a corpse. Only one entity could slay a vampire so cleanly and easily, the Volturi. Rosalie, said a familiar female voice. A pleasure to see you after so many decades. Quote. Jane and Alec, and two other guards I did not recognize. My eyes widened. It was just me and Victoria, no Amunet to save us this time. If you want to kill her Jane swept her hand and Victoria cried out in agony as she fell to her knees. My eyes bulged and panic seized my muscles, but I could not do anything until the torture stopped and Victoria's shoulders fell in relief. Alex said, "We merely wish to speak with you. Whether we kill you or not depends upon the outcome of our conversation. Carlisle Cullen is in Volterra, and this is a friendly favor to him for now. Please, sit." I exchanged a glance with Victoria. She gave me a tiny nose and strode over to the antique sofa. Jane and Alex sat across from us, but the other two Volturi remained standing with a strangely immense focus in their eyes and expressions. Alec waved a hand towards the companions. "These brothers share a useful gift. They can conceal our presence. Even Amunet or other Volturi." Jane dropped a weathered manila folder sloppily branded with a wax seal of the Volturi crest on the hideous coffee table. She casually opened it with a soft swoop of her pale hand, revealing an enormous stack of surveillance photos. Of my family. And of Bella and her pack. "Even Edward and Alice can't detect us with the boys here helping." Without my permission, my fingers reached out to caress the glossy photograph of Bella that lay at the top of the pile. I allowed myself only a few seconds to gaze at it before lifting my head. Why all of this just for me? Where many see a disgrace, Eros sees opportunity. Amunet holds you very close, but we believe that your lack of loyalty to her and your affiliation with Carlisle Cullen could prove beneficial, were you to agree with our terms and so long as you remain cooperative. Victoria boldly interrupted, "You mean compliant? Choose whichever word you wish. We only seek your help. And you hope to gain it through threats. Quote, even we are no threat compared to what will happen if Amunet starts the war she wants to wage, much less if she wins it." Before I could speak, Alec interjected, "Perhaps she is too young to understand. I have seen what Amunet is capable of, and I know her story. She's hurt me and the people I love. I don't support her. And we are certain she knows that. But her only exploitable flaw has always been her arrogance. She thinks she can convince you. The only question the Volturi have for you is if that is her arrogance, or the truth." Alec held up a hand. "Don't answer. Only your actions will matter." He handed me a slip of paper with flawless calligraphy relaying a phone number. "Call us to divulge any intelligence you collect. Or don't, this courtesy visit is one personal favor to an old friend. We make no promises about our future encounters." They were gone so quickly one could understand the myth that Vampire 3s could transform into bats and swoop away. I slowly closed the folder and turned to Victoria. Seeing Bella's face outside of memories and dreams, seeing powerful vampires desperate enough to ask for my help, or ask at all for that matter, and the shocking news that Carly SLE was in Volterra all hit me at once like a swift and severe punch to the gut. Victoria asked, "Do you want to bring Amunet down?" Her tone was perfectly neutral, I could not tell where she stood. However, her opinion did not matter very much to the decision I was making. "Yes, I'm getting tired of caring about Rosalie Hale and her special destiny. If anything, the time with her and her cult has reminded me of why I stick to my moral code. If we stop her in time, and with as little violence as possible, for once, the vampires can be heroes instead of monsters." To my mild surprise, Victoria scoffed and retorted, "I'm nobody's goddamned hero. And I'm not ever this idealistic, but these are strange times. They say strange times make for strange bedfellows. I sincerely hope you mean the Volturi. I do and don't. I haven't decided my allegiances. I have, but not to the Volturi, or my coven, or Amunet. To Bella Swan, I take it. Yes, I have to go." I stuffed the phone number into my pocket before reconsidering and sliding it deep beneath my bra. "Join me if you want. I don't really care." I made for the door and had my hand on the knob when Victoria finally rose to her feet. "Rosalie, wait. What is it? Maybe we're rarely heroes, but we're not monsters." I shook my head. All I could think about was the pain of my phone call with Bella, and the only two emotions I had felt since speaking to her. Regret. Remorse. It could truly be enough to tear a creature apart, no matter how far down the wrong path they had traveled. Of all the odd meeting places to which I had accompanied Amunet, a college campus's sorority row was easily the strangest yet. We entered a wild party of drunk young humans, neon lights and cheap booze. In my rounds of colleges and degrees, I had only really been to a few. This was never my scene. It only took a few moments for two female vampires wearing themed costumes. They could be mistaken for identical twins, were it not for the curly, dark hair of one and the long silken strawberry locks of the other. Amunet confidently stepped forward and embraced both of them one by one with a peck on the cheek for each before reaching out her arms in a very grandiose manner unfitting of our surroundings. Desdemona, my darling, oh and Agnes, it's good to see you. Where's Theobald? Dead. The Volturi? Yes. They are nearby. Agnes and I almost had to give up on waiting for you. We're already packed to leave after this party. Please, forgive my tardiness. Shall we have a bite and discuss your future now that I am free? The one called. Desdemona wrapped her arm around Amunet's back and walked away taking and laughing. Angelique shot only a brief glance at Victoria and I before following. I escaped Victoria as she walked off into her hunt. The party did not suit me at all. I never felt out of place, but I did here. I was in an immensely crowded room of loud, vibrant people, but I had never before felt so alone. After attempting to mingle and falling short, I slipped out of the party and walked past the porch towards the large yard to be by myself among the well-kept foliage. It was there in the darkness that I heard two familiar voices speaking angrily in animated archaic French. I had read enough old literature and the words were close enough to modern that with a little extra focus I could understand. Amunet snarled to her mate, "You are being impossible. We have been having versions of this argument for centuries and I tire of it. My owl, you know you are my everything, but I can't stand when you do this and it has been so long. Hear me, please." The conversation halted for a few long moments as Amunet tenderly kissed Angelique and caressed her face. "I am listening. Please speak, my sparrow. I know you are trying to protect me. But we are a team, partners. I do not want you to protect me right now, I want you to be honest with me." Despite wanting to hear the rest, I ran. And ran. A drunk boy blocked my path to the nearby wooded area. He tried to chat me up and I could not say a word. I shoved him out of my way and kept going. "A rude girl is a lonely girl," jeered the frat boy after me. I kept walking as I called back, "I'm counting on it." But my escape failed when cold but soft arms wrapped around me. Amunet turned me into half of a dance before forcing us to both face a keg stand on the porch. Angelique rested her head on my shoulder and set her hand gently on my hip. Amunet purred, "Do you want me to kill that one? Perhaps you would find him delicious. I asked you very politely not to keep pushing this on me. Come now, these humans are despicable. You would be doing the world and yourself a favor by feeding on one. In this room, you can do no wrong. With all due respect, I disagree. I understood when you were so devoted to Carlyle, but I am curious now. Why do you still refuse to drink human blood? Because humans deserve to survive. It is not simply enough to say humans deserve to survive. Tell me why they are worthy of surviving." I could not come up with an answer. But that did not mean I had not changed my mind about not wanting to kill humans. I killed several. Despite not drinking their blood. They deserved what they got, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. But murder, and it was murder, not real justice. It leaves a mark and it changes you. I can't say I know the feeling. Perhaps you've just forgotten it. Amunet smiled. You are probably correct. But what you were reborn to do, you were reborn to do. It is vitally important to be true to yourself. Not if that self is someone I hate. The most important thing in life is doing what you feel is right, and sticking by your moral code. Angelique laughed and shook her head before saying in a remarkably matter-of-fact tone, "The only thing that truly matters in life or death is the appreciation of beauty, and even that is pointless." I wanted to not believe her. I didn't believe her. Yet, maybe sometimes I did. I escaped the party as soon as I could, wandering the woods, finding a deer dinner, losing even more of my certainty about everything in the world. It started to rain, and, yet again, I could think of only Isabella Marie Swann. When we got back to the latest motel, I tensely waited for opportunity as Amunet and Angelique retired to their room with lustful eyes. And Victoria headed out onto the balcony as part of her near-dawn ritual. The moment I was alone, I grabbed my purse and shut myself in the closet. I kept my senses acutely attuned to the room outside. As I withdrew the burner phone and swiftly set it up. I had to talk to Bella because I finally knew what I needed to say. But it was abundantly clear she did not want to hear it, as I tried her number and was sent to voicemail 7 times before deciding to leave a message. It did not seem like an appropriate thing to put into a text, although I did send her a free pleading to talk to her. I no longer cared if I seemed pathetic or desperate, none of that mattered anymore. Bella, I need to tell you that I'm sorry, and I regret what I did, but I'm in really deep right now. But mostly I want to tell you that I was being stupid and selfish. I left to protect you, but you didn't need that right now. You needed me to be honest with you, and I should have been from the start. I'm not like Alice or Amunet. I don't know what the future holds. I just hope somewhere in it, I'm holding you again. And if that happens, I'm never gown asterisk to be stupid enough to let you go. Please call me back. I could only manage a few moments before dialing another number and impatiently waiting through 2 tense rings. What's up? Casually answered my brother, Emmett. His fine immediately changed from languid to frantic. Rose, thank God. We need you to come home. Text me your address and I'll be there as fast as I can. I can't right now. When Carlisle goes home he can explain. What? I need you to do something vital. I need you to tell Bella that. I can't. What do you mean you can't? Bella's gone. She ran away from home 2 days ago and nobody has any idea where she went. We were all hoping where she went. We were all hoping she was with you. Tell me more. What exactly happened? The call ended before I could get my answers. 0 bars. Fuck these desert towns. I desperately walked into the hall, praying for reception, for just 2 more minutes on the phone, but then I froze in place when I heard Amunet's glossy voice say, Lugaro, and Prometer, to her mate. They sue. LDB talking about no one else but Bella, and a lightning bolt of fear struck me. Slowly, doing my best to restrain my terror and focus, I stepped closer to the door and listened to the hushed conversation in rather dated spoken French. Then keep your promise, said Angelique. Tell me why the werewolf girl is so important to you. Because the only scar on my indestructible body comes from one of her ancestors. And now her filthy maw has given me my first wound in centuries. I had truly believed I wiped them from existence until I encountered those 3 at the manor. I need her. It is a risk, but I trust you. Rosalie Hale is with us, and at last the wolf has left the protection of her hallowed ground, just as I foresaw. The hunter already has her scent. I've seen it. And I've seen that I will be successful. We will have her within the fortnight. My eyes bulged. It took everything to stop me from barging in there, but I could not afford to let Amunet know what I had heard. You're sure we can contain the wolf? I lost it. I leapt from my hiding spot. The wolf has a name. Bella Swan. And I am not going to let you hurt her. I was unconscious before I was even ready to throw a punch. Waking up was not a feeling I was familiar with, and it disoriented me incredibly. As did the bright, pale fluorescent lights above me. Where am I? Amunet's beautiful yet terrible face came into view. My friend has a research facility to run tests on our kind so we can discover more about us. Don't give me that face. I don't intend to run any tests on you. This is simply the only place adequate to imprison a vampire outside of Volterra. Pause. Until she breaks. I never will. You might, once your wolf finally becomes our latest lab rat. We don't really need you until she gets here, so you can get comfortable. I'll let the Volturi know their new spy is permanently indisposed. I think I will simply tell people you have been destroyed. It will be simpler. What do you want with Bella? Knowledge. But not just about her and her kind's powers. This imprinting on a vampire of all creatures. I will find out what it means and how it works. After all, we have until the end of time. I called Emmett before I overheard you and Angelique. He knows where I am and he and my family and the wolves and the Volturi are coming for me. Rosalie, you are an impressive vampire and remarkable woman. But a terrible liar. It really is a shame that you will not join my cause voluntarily, but I expected resistance. I have no use for allies who cannot think and act for themselves. I hope you can see beyond the blindness of youth and realize I was only demonized for having radical and new ideas, and because I threatened men who thought themselves better myself despite confusing order with terror. All I want is what is best for vampires. For us to no longer hide in the shadows. For us to have a proper place in the world rather than scurrying around like rats. You're not an idealist or a leader. You're nothing more than another power-hungry dictator out for petty revenge. I growled through bared teeth. Despite my current situation, it felt fantastic to say what I had been thinking all along. Unfortunately for you, history will not remember it that way. Amunet began to walk away before stopping in her tracks. I almost forgot. Here, so you don't starve before your wolf arrives. Tu had only just managed to sit up and look at the cell surrounding me, made of bare metal furniture and mirrored walls, when the bound and gagged human man stumbled in. He fell to his knees. I leaped to my feet. Amunet left and locked the door behind her. Time passed and passed, but I had no idea how much of it. My hours were spent trapped between fear for Bella and futile attempts at escape. I helped the hurt human as much as I could, but he was too traumatized and afraid to go anywhere near me or speak a word, no matter how much I prodded for conversation. I withdrew the engagement ring from my bra mere minutes into captivity, and I was still clutching it for eons later. It was becoming more and more difficult to have faith I would ever be able to give it to Bella. Time passed and passed, and I lost track of everything among the bright lights and mirrors. Everything was distorted, even my reflection. It felt not unlike being in a funhouse at a carnival. The only clear thing was the pulsing blood of the human beside me. And eventually, despite a valiant fight, I was no longer a conscious person with a conscience. I had become thirst, and nothing else. The ripping of flesh and splattering of blood went quickly and was as cloudy as a dream. A nightmare. But after draining an innocent life, my mind finally became crystal clear. I walked to the walls of my cell without even wiping my mouth. As I gazed into the mirrored window of my cell, I hardly recognized the eyes staring back at me. They were scarlet, and full of nothing but rage. Blank, underscore, blank. Leah, blank, underscore, blank. A week or so after Bella vanished, only Charlie Swan bothered with missing posters. He was in a wretched state and I felt awful for him, but I didn't know what I could do about it. Days kept going by without her, situations kept getting worse, and even though we knew way more about her life, her story, her powers and her purpose, we did not have a clue about her location either. Bella was gone, at least for now. I, of course, didn't know what was going through her head or any details of whatever her plan was. Since losing Rosalie, it seemed to get harder and harder to understand my best friend with each passing day. It was even harder to understand why she left without saying goodbye. But I got it, to enough of an extent that I wasn't angry with her. She imprinted on a vampire, got stuck in a wacky war worthy of a shit Game of Thrones subplot, and had to lead a pack full of tension and resistance against her. Had to become a mythical wolf beast and a vampire bride. Bram Stoker would bust a nut. But honestly, she was a reserved, clumsy, sad but happy girl from your average American broken home, dealing with heartbreak and F.A. Miley secrets that she wished stayed buried. She was a raccoon in a trap, and I also would have chewed my leg off, cut and run. Most of all, I understood perfectly what it was like to be haunted by the ghost of a birthright. Unfortunately, no one else in the pack saw it that way. Jake still loved her and cared about her like me, but he couldn't hide his anger. She was the white girl who consorted with the enemy and then ran away in a time of war, something even I struggled to not see as a betrayal. I pitied none of them, nor did I bother to explain myself. And I sure as hell didn't feel bad for the Cullens. But seeing Charlie, and knowing there was no way to reassure him, no way to explain, it damn near broke my heart to witness. And for the first time, I actually felt genuine anger towards Bella Swan for her decision. Whether I empathized with her reasons or not, it seemed unlike her to do this to her dad and her friends. She better explain herself damned well when she comes home, I thought. At the moment, Jake and I were in Forks, making uncomfortable small talk with Chief Swan as we prepared to help him put them up. We were about to take off with ours when two vampires walked inside. The stench of cold death made my nose wrinkle. "I'm so sorry we're late," chimed the small girl one. Alice, I assumed from Bella's descriptions. She had a male Cullen in tow, but I had no clue who he was. He had a kind face, despite his stench and vampiric features. "It's no problem," said Charlie. "Oh, this is Jake and Leah." The pretty leech chirped, "I'm Alice, and this is Jasper." Jacob was just glaring, so I gave an awkward nod and slightly forced smile. I couldn't stand the vampires either, but at least I was a reasonable enough person to be polite. Jake never masked his emotions. Maybe I liked that about him. I wasn't sure. Jacob snorted. I didn't know the Addams family was coming. I tried and failed to suppress my snicker. They returned awkward smiles and I turned to Jake. As usual, All the subtlety of a hand grenade, I sighed at my boyfriend. Alice did giggle before murmuring a sugar-sweet apology to Jacob. It was probably the most vibrant action I had ever seen a vamp do. I got the feeling her DNA may have been made of pink cupcakes, leech or not. She said sweetly, "We should split up to cover more ground," and Jake grunted in bitter agreement before Alice added, "We really should exchange phone numbers in case something happens." Her emphasis on the last word was not lost on me, but Jacob kept grinding his teeth, and I thought it unwise to share with him. He was too angry, and blamed the leeches for Bella being gone. But I knew that in case something happens was not about the posters. She wanted to be able to call if Bella resurfaced or was in trouble. I elbowed Jacob and the four of us swapped and typed to follow Alice's advice before finally shoving our phones back in our pockets. Animosity between us or not, once Charlie returned, we set out, unfortunately accompanied by leeches. And went to hang up the useless posters for a girl who was not quite missing. I sat next to Jake on his comfortable sofa while we watched the Seattle storm decimate the Phoenix Mercury. While I was focused intently on the game, he was messing around with my watch, intending to fix it, but more likely to break it. He was too stubborn to admit that a watch was not the same as a vehicle. I turned to him and saw his frustration. In an attempt to distract him I teased, "I hope you know I'm leaving you for Sue Bird." He looked up and laughed. That relieved me. "You'd be an idiot to give me up. I'm the full package, and you love it." I teased with a smug smirk. "I'm only using you for your body and free repair services." "Ah, you know you're a damn smitten kitten. Just say it." Jacob laughed as I pointedly rolled my eyes. That was totally a free pass to whack him with a couch pillow. "Never." I smirked. He kissed me quickly and resumed his repair attempt. Silent save for occasionally cussing under his breath. As I tried to return my focus to the game, I absent-mindedly combed my hair with my fingers as my thoughts swirled and spun. Abandoning the watch, Jacob set his hand on my arm. And I finally exhaled, albeit not with relief, but simply a brief reprieve. All of my thoughts suddenly spilled out of my mouth. I think Rose and Bella and even Sam and the Cullens, and I mean I'm a dead cynic most of the time, but I think they all really are just trying to do the right thing in their dumb bullshit opinions, and it makes everything just well, said Jake with a shrug I deemed too casual. "You know what they say about the road to hell. I never wanted this. None of the pack did, even if all you idiot guys think it's so cool and manly and exciting. We deserved normal lives like everybody else, and we got royally fucked by this vampire war that's ours for no goddamned reason. None of us wanted this. The leeches never asked us what we wanted. Not just the leeches." We exchanged a glance, and my crestfallen gaze shifted to my feet. Not just the leeches. The next mid-morning, Jake and I were hanging out in his garage. He was driving me crazy yet again. But doing something normal felt good. "Oh, you're acting like a jackass. It must be an even-numbered day," I said with a fleeting roll of my eyes. "I'm just saying that, He dropped his wrench and cursed as he dove down to pick it up. I groaned, albeit suppressing a smile. "Jake, I care about you a lot, but I want you to know that some nights I wish you would drink gasoline." "All part of my charm," he joked. "You are so lucky you're cute," I groaned. "So are you." I just leaned back against the wall and peacefully watched him work for a few minutes. He lifted his head, expression oddly grave, and stared directly into my eyes. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something. Yeah, I don't want to leave Bella's safety and the future of our tribe in the hands of the leeches." Bella seemed pretty convinced our tribe has something to do with the crazy B-horror movie Leech Bitch, right? Maybe she was onto something. I hated to admit it, knowing this would probably result in nothing but trouble. But I completely agreed with him. We had to take fate into our own hands. "What do you suggest we do?" "I think we should get access to the tribe archives. All the oldest documents and relics that most people haven't looked at in basically decades. I don't know why they wouldn't let us take a peek. They do it for pale-face PhDs. Why not for us?" "Okay. I'll give the tribal center a call." Jacob frowned, eyes downcast as he rubbed at his sweaty forehead. He left streaks of grease where his fists touched his skin. I waited, albeit impatiently, for him to look back up. "I already tried. They said we could schedule an appointment in 3 weeks at the earliest. So I talked to my dad and old Quill. No luck. My dad said not to get involved in the leech shit. Said I had to respect Bella, and keep my nose clean to keep us safe. Old Quill gave a huge boring lecture about how I could expose us and cause a disaster by acting irrationally about Bella. Do you think there's something in the archives that makes them think we'd do something crazy and dangerous? Or maybe something that could get the pack in bad trouble? That's my guess. Shit. I wish you had told me. Maybe I could have helped. I doubt you could have. Nobody gets it, even my fucking dad. Jake grit his teeth and ferociously kicked an empty toolbox. I flinched as it crashed into the garage wall. They haven't seen what we have. No matter what's in those archives, it can't get us into anything worse than the leeches got us into. And even if I left old Quill and my dad out of it, it's not like I could explain to damned curators why this shit is urgent and time sensitive. They'd think I'd lost my damned mind. Well, you do bounce between a tad crazy and absolutely certifiable. My lips twitched with a smile and his expression briefly softened. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch. There's only one thing we can do. We go into the archives on our own. Nobody has to know. I mean, it's our tribal history. Our heritage. How much trouble can we get in for swinging by after hours? Well, we could be charged with breaking and entering. Go to jail. It's for Bella. Nobody else is gonna do it but us. He had me there. It made it feel almost impossible to refuse any reckless or insane plan to help our friend. I want to. If it could help her, I want to. But don't want to spend my junior year in prison. Maybe somebody left the door unlocked. It's not breaking and entering if the door is unlocked, said Jake. I rolled my eyes pointedly but he just grinned. I'm pinning all of this on you if it goes wrong. That's fair. He laughed. So, Jake swept his workshop table clear, and we got to work on our plan. 2 nights later, we were dressed in black, and sneaking around the tribal archive building well after operating hours. We took our chance and clambered in through one of the few unlocked windows. Could you close the window a little louder? Sked Jacob exasperatedly as soon as I hopped down into the main library. Jacob looked at me like I was somehow the crazy one. It's past midnight, no one is here. If your lack of grace gets us caught, you don't get to pin it on me anymore. Don't worry, I said, I've got a cyanide capsule and a false tooth. If I'm caught, I'll do the honorable thing. You're having way too much fun with this, replied Jake. But he could not hide that messy grin of his. I shrugged. Can't help it. I feel like I'm in a Bond movie. I'm Bond, right? Hell no. More like Austin Powers at best. I'm Bond. He playfully shoved me before resuming our very illegal pursuit. We walked for a while. Even having lived on the res for all of our lives, neither Jake nor I spent much time in the library, especially not in the dark while committing a crime. Still, thankfully, we quietly followed the signs leading towards the closed and locked special archives. At last, without getting caught so far, we made it to the front office, blocking off the archives from anyone without an approved and thoroughly vetted request to enter. I found it unfair that the tribe members couldn't access it all at once, but I did understand that the artifacts and records inside were old, priceless, and very susceptible to accidental destruction at the hands of the general public. Quickly, Jacob and I started our search for the key. Every creak, clatter and click made me nearly piss myself. This seriously better be worth the price of potential arrest. After 2 or 3 minutes of digging around, Jacob tapped my shoulder and turned me to look at him. Did you find the key? I whispered. He did not answer me as he grabbed a Sharpie from the desk. Are we adding theft to the charges now? I uneasily joker. Give me your hand. What? No. Leah Clearwater. For once in your damned life, can you not be difficult? My lips twitched with a small smile. Nope. He grabbed my hand and held it to the dim light. I began to panic. I thought he may do something idiotic like draw a ring around my finger, but he put our initials and a stupid but sweet grade school plus sign on the palm of my hand and then did the same to himself. I can't wait to show this off to the other girls on the playground. I'm not good at words. I noticed. It means I'm done hiding this. Us. Whatever we are. I was so stunned that I could not even tease him. All I could feel were butterflies in my stomach and the heated flush of my face. Okay. Cool, I said sincerely. I mentally kicked myself for not managing to think of anything romantic to say. But it seemed like he was expecting it. I guess I'd anticipate the same from him. For a moment, we forgot why we were here. For a moment, we forgot about magic, monsters and impending war. For a moment, we forgot about the fact that we only had each other for as long as our wolf biology would let us. While brief, I reveled in the eye of the storm. He leaned in to kiss me and Suddenly I snapped back to reality and set my hand on his face to drag him back into the real world with me. Indiana Jones style heist first. Then we can make out, I said. He rolled his eyes and waved his big, strong hand dismissively at me. I huffed, but he still did go to the door and managed to get it open. I cursed and nearly punched him in the face when he did so by breaking the door handle. But we did not have time to bicker bitterly as usual, since we now had added destruction of property to the potential charges. This better be worth it, I muttered through gritted teeth and a tense, sore jaw. Jake and I went inside the climate-controlled, pristine room. It hit me like a slam to the gut when I saw the seemingly endless maze of books and boxes. Still, this was important and we had come way too far to turn back now. So we split up and started our search of the labyrinth. In the following hour or two, I found so many astounding and interesting things that were difficult to peel myself away from and focus on the relevant information that may or may not exist. It seemed unfair to lock all of this away, but I somehow kept my thoughts solely focused on what we currently sought. A few minutes from hour 3. I was nearing the point where I wanted to grab Jacob and get the hell out of Dodge. We still had plenty of time before anyone would be here, but beyond our illegal activities. Something in here made my stomach churn and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But I could not fret long, because at the key moment, Jacob commanded me to come over. I set down a ledger of tribal records in the early 1900s and ran to him. Incapable of proper speech, Jacob held up what he found, his expressionless face saying more about his aghast horror than words ever could. My heart skipped a beat. And with no regard for the fragility of the pinned parchment, I dove forward and snatched the archaic pages from his hands. I flipped through, reading rapidly as the sweat on my fingers faintly stained the weathered but well-preserved documents. "Show me where you found it," I ordered, and he did not make a snarky comment or call me bossy. He just pointed at the box and we both began to dig through. The tally of newfound knowledge and terror rising with each fragment found. What we found was not worth being caught breaking and entering for. It was worth dying for. Blank, underscore, blank. Victoria. Blank, underscore, blank. Even before I became a vampire, I did not have much in the way of a conscience. A life of servitude, betrayal and heaven. No time for thoughts or hopes other than surviving until the next day did that to a person. My sister, my situation, not even the shift in perspective from the Cullens could ever erase it, and the paranoia I have lived with since. I never had bothered with right and wrong. Or maybe I just never knew the difference. It was an easy, peaceful way to live, and with a past like mine, it was really the only way I knew how to live. But, although I could not say I had ever come close to developing a conscience, even after what happened with James and the Cullens, I also could not say I felt right about holding Rosalie hostage. But if it was the only way to keep her from running to her dog, I wasn't sure if I wanted to resist Amunet's orders. I always knew I was selfish. Just not this selfish. It didn't help that I knew if I tried to help her I would end up either dead or tossed into one of those horrifying cells myself. Usually, I felt powerful, in control. But right now I felt like a rat dropped into a cage of snakes. Sitting helplessly and trying to blend in. I was 15 and human and afraid, the way I promised myself I would never be again. I punched my powerful fist into the hotel room wall as I snarled. I hated the weakness in me. The part of me that had experienced friendship, family, and actually liked it. The only person I ever cared about was James. Rosalie's mate, the Cullens, Amunet. Everyone I had come to care for tore him away from me. I was a coward. I was a traitor. And worst of all, I was Rosalie Hale's friend, yet I betrayed her. So, now I had to weigh my options. It was odd to me that, in so little time, being as cold and calculated as I had always been became so complicated. I did believe in Amunet, but I also knew she would kill me without hesitation to further her own goals. It was well worth it to keep my mouth shut and feign worship of the ancient woman. I had believed in my one true love, James, but I would have died if I stayed with him. I never believed in the Volturi and their bullshit, but they may be my ticket to survival and 1,000th fresh start. Yet, Somehow my vampiric power, my cold pursuit of self-preservation, was muddied by a first forgiveness despite coming on to her when she had a mate, and a first friend whom inexplicably wanted nothing in return. Amunet said she would be fine. Amunet said she trusted me and I would not only be fine, but rule the world by her side. For now, I saw no safer path for me than to pretend to believe her. Partial ignorance, I decided, was partial bliss. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to silence my confused thoughts. But the moment I opened them, Amunet appeared before me. Her eyes glimmered with feigned kindness and her upturned lips reeked of artificial sugar. My sister once told me that the wider the smile, the bigger the lies, and that advice unlike her had never once let me down. I'm surprised how quickly you figured out Rosalie's scheme, I said smoothly, trying to test the waters as gently as possible. I wish I had discovered it earlier. Amunet laughed faintly and gave me a condescending look. Well, unfortunately, you seem to trust her. Her mate killed mine, I snarled. The anger behind my words was real, so raw and sincere that it surprised even myself. True, but losing a mate creates a complicated state of mind. I have, of course, studied it as deeply as I have studied all aspects of the supernatural. She looked me over before at last saying, "Here is a piece of advice from me, that I hope you remember for eternity. Victoria, my dear, trust is for fools. Assume everyone will betray you. And you shall never be disappointed." Before meeting the Cullens, I would have wholeheartedly agreed. But now, my only thought was that it sounded like an incredibly lonely way to live. "But you trust Angelique, don't you?" Amunet very faintly frowned. Fear hit me like a searing lightning bolt. I might have crossed a line and it might have been the last line I ever crossed. Yes, with everything in me. That is why love is so difficult. To trust someone not only to not betray you, but to trust them to accept you as whoever or whatever you really are. I nodded. She hit something deep, but I doubt it was what she wanted to trigger in me. The Cullens were self-righteous fools, but unlike James or Amunet, they had no qualms about accepting me, even after seeing who I am. Due to this new feeling, I sat contemplating for a while as Amunet and Angelique went out to hunt and make love and whatever came along with that. And, at last, I slipped into Amunet and Angelique's closet and found Rosalie's bag. I rummaged desperately through until I found the number the Volturi left. Hastily, I typed it into my phone and let it ring. "Hello, I have informatio. On Amunet's plans and the whereabouts of a top-secret base of hers, as well as the location and status of Rosalie Hale." The next evening, a slip of hotel stationery bearing coordinates burning a hole in the bottom of my bra. I handed 2 concert tickets to Angelique. "This is for you and Amunet. I've been feeling very lonely grieving James and I figured you two have been so busy with your work. So perhaps you would like to introduce Amunet to some excitements of the 21st century. You should come with us. Sadly, I'm not in the mood for a threesome." I faked a sickeningly believable laugh. "At least right now." Angelique laughed and winked. "We'll see how you feel about that in a few weeks. I appreciate this, as I am sure my mate will as well. Do you have plans? Some solo hunting for men who are a good laugh and a tasty bite." Angelique embraced me. She smelled strongly of Amunet's signature scent, fear and death. But, thankfully, getting them away went off without a hitch. And I headed to the meeting point given to me by the Volturi over the phone. It was an abandoned apartment building, not exactly what I anticipated from what I knew of the vampiric government. I strode in and saw Jane, her brother and their cloaking device guards. "Nice place, isn't it?" teased Alec as he bolted the door behind me. "Honestly, I expected something more." Coolly, she said, "Sorry to disappoint. What do you want?" "To talk to Arrow." She laughed. I clenched my fists. "Aim lower. I'm risking a lot by giving you this information. You also would be risking a lot by not giving us this information." "Yeah, and I don't care." Her expression soured, but she did not lash out. My stomach turned as I realized, for the first time in my life, I did not care if someone hurt me or not. Against all of my nature. Despite my vampiric gift, I no longer gave a damn. The universe was messy, the world was teetering on the edge of destruction, I was stuck either groveling to Amunet or serving the Volturi. And God had long ago become a book of matches and a mouthful of fresh blood. Above all else I was suffering through as Amunet's cowardly lackey. Nothing was more painful and maddening than the loneliness. Nothing. I had been in an endless blur until I was hunting in a bar, and saw a human man. His features, his stature, all of it was my physical type, although I knew he was not meaningful in any way. He looked familiar, but I could not place him. I sat down across from him. "May I buy you a drink?" "No. But I'd love to buy one for both of us." I smirked. "So, you look familiar. Have we met before? You go to UW, maybe. It's spring break, so I'm road tripping with my boys to the Gulf." "I'd say you looked familiar too, but if I saw a girl like you, I would remember it." "I'm Riley. And you are." "Boys don't get to know my name on the first date." "What did they get to know?" "The color of my underwear." His eyes lit up. "A foolish human man like all of the rest, Alf." Ow, I had to acknowledge there was a certain sexual energy between us. He cleared his throat and rubbed his neck. The blood rushing to his cheeks smelled sweet and fragrant and delicious. "What about where you're from?" I brushed my fingers down his throbbing neck and inhaled the sweet fragrance of blood as he faintly shivered. "Let's solve this mystery. Boring small town up in Washington. Forks, it's called. The kind of place that makes you understand why grunge musicians all got addicted to heroin." I laughed and we followed our desires up to the roof, clothes tearing off, until the moment before humans would begin to fuck. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I am giving you a choice." I bit down into his neck. "Hard." He cried out. I drank until I pulled away, fangs dripping down my lips, my chin, my breasts. He could only weakly groan. "I can finish my meal, or I can give you new life and unimaginable power at my side." Fortunately, he chose wisely. The second my work was done, I effortlessly picked up the writhing Riley and carried him to the motel. I tossed him carelessly onto the bed. It would take time for the transformation to complete, and I thought it right to give him some small comfort as he went through the agony. Angelique cleared her throat and cocked a condescending eyebrow. "May I ask who this creature is?" "Riley," I replied, perhaps too ferociously. The thrill of the night had made me overconfident, yet I could not find it in myself to care about the consequences. I made him to keep me company. Amunet left without acknowledging me, but did not voice any disapproval. Angelique, however, set her delicate hand on my shoulder and after a brief lick of her lips smirked at me. My internal organs cried out in cringe. "Nicely done. Just don't let him become a problem. Newborns are unpredictable if not well controlled. Dig your claws in quickly and certainly enjoy him while you can." She lightly kissed my cheek and abandoned me in my room to be with her mate. I laid down. Although sadly rest was not much of an option. I never missed that aspect of being a human until I had to deal with all of this heaviness. After glancing at Riley, I shifted my gaze to the ceiling. I thought after trashing her belongings and finding a new companion, I would quickly forget about my first and best friend. But I was wrong. The next day, I both became very bored of Riley's non-existent company. Did it take me this painfully long to turn as well, or was he weak? And very concerned about what was going on with Amunet, Angelique and their growing gang of cronies. I, like every other creature on Earth, hated being kept out of the loop on anything important. The fact that my dire position meant knowledge determined whether I lived, died or, worst of all, spent eternity enslaved, only worsened that anger and unease. Only so many gossip magazines and excess melodramatic hunts could keep me distracted. I tried my best to eavesdrop when it seemed more convenient than potentially fatal. But Amunet and Angelique seemed to speak almost exclusively in French when alone, and their minions either spoke in forms of code when it came to Amunet's schemes or were just as in the dark as I was. I missed Rosalie and her love of languages that let her in on the truths shared between Amunet and Angelique. Considering the scraps I overheard each evening, Angelique was the only person to whom Amunet never lied. But today, for the first time, I truly lucked out. Pressed against the thin wall and grateful for my heightened vampiric senses, Amunet and Angelique's French discussion became an argument in a spattering of languages before the climax burst out into English. "I refuse to let you go alone," snarled Angelique, her ordinarily intoxicating French accent now ugly and raw. "And I have the final say." The power of Amunet's voice even frightened me, and I was not the target. Yet, Angelique began to shout and protest in what I could only imagine were very offensive French words. But Amunet quickly cut her off. "I will be handling the collection of the wolf personally. It is too much of a risk for you, Mon Moino." Keep watch over Victoria, Rosalie and the others while I'm gone. Especially that newborn scum, he is a risk. Finally, Angelique relented and quietly said, "Be careful, Ma Chouette. We still do not know the extent of the mongrel's power." Amunet cackled. It sent a shiver down my spine. "I am indestructible. You have nothing to fear." But despite such confident words, her voice wavered in such a way that I could hardly believe she was the one speaking. I scurried back to my bed and flipped open a trash magazine to a random page as soon as I heard Amunet enter the hallway. Sure, I was afraid. I wished I knew how the conversation began, and worried I had missed something vital. But one thing was clear from what I heard. Amunet the unstoppable and undying was perhaps not entirely indestructible. Riley survived the change. It perhaps as good in at least one way that Amunet was gone hunting Bella, since my new attempt at a mate looked like an utter fool as he woke and panicked. I kissed him as he woke, feeling not unlike the prince in Sleeping Beauty. It did not make me feel guilty like forcing a kiss onto an unwilling Rosalie, but it did not make me burn with passion like kissing James. James. I would never get over him, even if I made an army of boyfriends to dote on me. It took time, but I soothed Riley through his initial rejection of his new eyes, new body, and new ravenous hunger. Once he embraced his new world, I raced my relief at no longer needing to feign softness and sweetness. "You're amazing," he drawled, staring at me with dark scarlet eyes of desire. They were almost black with lust and I could not help but feel flattered and frisky. "I know it." I shrugged my shoulders seductively and flashed a wicked smile. He leaned in, eagerly touching me, before freezing and crumbling, doubled over. The first hit of the thirst. I knew very well that the desperation of a man dying in the desert now plagued him. He coughed from the dryness of his throat and looked up at me pleadingly. Maybe I liked them pathetic. Maybe not. Either way, he could fill the void for at least a little while, and so I seized his wrist, pulled him to his feet, and took him on his first hunt. Amunet returned days later. The me passed more quickly for me than it had in ages thanks to teaching my vampire pet how to live as a superior being, and sleeping with him when it appealed to me. She and Angelique kissed passionately as a party by the decrepit, closed motel pool began with pale, vampiric faces both familiar and alien to me. Riley had fun. He was like a schoolboy in a candy shop, enjoying his first ever vampiric feast of sin and decadence. But I had listened to the undertones in Amunet's speech. She said nothing openly about Rosalie, locked away alive and suffering somewhere I could not save her, or about the details of why capturing the wolf was important. Most of all, despite her capturing Bella and imprisoning Rosalie, for reasons I doubted even Angelique fully understood, the stench of anxiety permeated her skin. Everyone here was too organized to notice, but I could smell it from a mile away. Maybe something in me snapped. A floodgate opened, or the bottle of anger in me burst, or perhaps the pleasures of the party dulled my senses. I cornered her as she reclined in a half-broken, filthy pool chair as if it were a throne made of pure gold. "Congratulations on this victory," I said. "Whatever purpose Rosalie and her mate will serve, I'm sure it's grand. You have the wisdom and foresight for it. Spare me the flattery and get to the point. Tell me what has unsettled you. I know you have been swallowing something you wish to say." She purred in a lazy, confident drawl, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of tormenting me. "It was your fault that Rosalie turned on you, and you can stop acting like it was intentional. You failed at using her for whatever your purpose was, and now she has to suffer over your pride. Go on." She was unfazed, but denied nothing in words or body language. If anything, she looked enticed by my statement. Trying to corrupt her was a mistake. I should have known that. She's a very stubborn woman, especially about her odd values and opinions about human lives. Why did you want that? I have no judgment, and I respect your authority and vast knowledge, but I'm curious and feeling a little out of the loop. If I knew more I could help more. Amunet laughed. Way clearly intended to disarm and dismiss me, but I did my best to stand my ground. I wanted her to embrace the fact that we are creatures of shadow and power. I wanted her to become her fullest self. My next words poured out before I could prevent them. "Well, if your intention is only working with the devil, you need only to look in the mirror." "You're too funny," purred Amunet with a twisted and strained smile. It infuriated me, but I also felt great relief that she did not kill me where I stood. Amunet simply laughed, waved her hand dismissively and returned to the party throne to celebrate her false mask of infallibility. But just before leaving my sight and earshot, she looked over her shoulder. Your gift is a wonderful one. You have the best chance of survival with me. Get over your attachments. They do not suit you. She left me. I was glad of it, but afraid I would slip up and say something overbold again if I did not escape. I grabbed Riley, dragged him back to the hotel room and had passionate sex with him until the party finally ended and I heard Amunet and Angelique return to their room. I made my choice. The party, confronting Amunet, banging Riley instead of doing what I intended to do. Now that I heard Amunet and Angelique, I knew it would soon be too late. Riley, babe, can you give me a minute? Of course. He jumped to his feet and stepped outside onto the motel balcony. I rolled my eyes. Perhaps his gift was being a boring pussy, the exact opposite of the man I once loved. All the same, the moment I knew I was alone, and no longer pursued, I LLED out my phone and called the Volturi. My mind swirled with panicked thoughts as it rang and rang. Amunet now had Bella Swan in her clutches, and at last, the venom of remorse burning my stomach became too much to handle. If I hoped for anything anymore, it was that Amunet would be crushed under the weight of her own ambition. I was certain nothing short of that could possibly manage to stop her. At last, someone answered. It was time to lay aside my pride and beg the Volturi for assistance, even if it cost me my dignity. As they say, better the devil you know. The end. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel for more such videos.